Hello, friends and bees and friends who are also bees, and welcome to this week's Indie Thursday stream. This week, Mochi is alive, and we are going to be continuing our playthrough of Higurashi When They Cry, Yoigoshi, and seeing who exactly is behind the door, and why we have gun, question mark. The second I hit go live, my monitor started freaking out, so we'll see how this goes. But either way, let us swap to the gameplay. Hit continue. Here we go. And let us hop right in. We left off last week. We were about to get shot. We'll talk later. Please focus on what's right in front of you. Yunosuke, let's go. Miyuki threw the door open. In that moment... Bang bang. The very moment the door came open, I heard sounds reminiscent of exploding firecrackers. Ah! Otobe flipped all the lights in the shrine grounds all at once, then sprinted back into the assembly room at full speed. The enemies must have been blinded by the lights. They stopped for a moment, etc. Then, Miyuki leapt out, charged straight towards a large tree out front, took cover behind it, and quickly turned, ready to fire. Over there. I could hear someone groan from off in the distance. Miyuki continued firing. Another 3 dry sounds quickly burst out. Sorry for the flashing. The gunshots sounded far more shoddy than they do in movies, but a thin trail of smoke was emanating from Miyuki's gun. That's the power of a gun. I couldn't bring myself to move from the spot. I had no idea where to aim or when to pull the trigger. That's not it. Don't lie to yourself, Yunosuke Arakawa. I didn't have it in me to pull the trigger. The hand holding the gun trembled pathetically under the weight of the thing. A bullet whizzed past my nose and struck the door right behind me. I crouched down and held my arms over my head in a fluster. The bullet struck the spot where I was just standing, one after another. Ryunosuke, run away! It's not safe here! Miyuki shouted at me from behind the tree. Immediately thereafter, 4 or 5 bullets struck the tree that she was hiding behind. Get a load of this, you creatures. When the rain of bullets ceased, Miyuki leaned out from the back of the big tree and suddenly started firing. Suddenly, I started to think. I began to wonder if I'd gotten lost in the world of a movie. If these bullets strike me, am I really going to die? My paralysis started to clear up as my sense of reality grew weaker. Thanks to Otobe, the lights in the shrine grounds allowed me to see my enemies. Men in black suits running through the darkness. What are those people? I couldn't really make out their faces, but I could sense an aura emanating from them, filled with the scum of the earth. At least they're human, and they're not the ghosts of Hinamizawa. I aimed for one of the men in black and pulled the trigger. The recoil dealt a heavy blow to my shoulder. The bullet didn't strike my target, but the man in black took cover behind some trees. No, I said chat only. There we go. I guess even an amateur like myself can be a threat. As I thought that, I aimed once more at the patch of trees. Ryunosuke, look out! Miyuki turned back in my direction and shouted. While I was distracted by the man hiding in the trees, another man in black suddenly jumped out in front of me. Die! Breath. I heard a dull sound, and looked up to see the man in black collapse as he reached out to me. Move that mouse out the way. Standing behind him, Miss Sonozaki. What? Go hide. After saying only that, Miss Sonozaki ignored the rain of bullets and charged at the men in black with her katana in hand. Fire all you want. You think you'll hit anything? Not a chance. Her powerful assassin was mysteriously proven true. Not a single bullet struck her. Insert sound effects here. Miss Sonozaki lifted the handle of her sword up through the one man's stomach, then struck the man beside him in the neck. The men fell to the ground, one after another. You're wasting your bullets, just like I told you. Miss Sonozaki dispatched the enemies, one by one. Her swordplay was as accurate as her footwork, and quick too. The difference in strength was huge. So much so that it was easy to forget she was fighting to the death. Her combat technique was beautiful and overwhelming. That's a meal. Well, it's a Sonozaki, alright? But is she? What? A man hiding behind a tree pointed his gun towards Miss Sonozaki and carefully pulled the trigger. Watch out! Too slow. Like this dramatic version of the theme song we've got going on right now. The gun flew out of the hands of the man behind the tree. He looked on with terror in his eyes. I could see the smoke rising from Miyuki's gun. Miyuki? Finally sensing the difference in strength, the men in black retreated while supporting their wounded companions. Miss Sonozaki returned her sword to its sheath, then started heading back to the assembly hall. Miyuki started heading back too, with her smoking gun still in hand. Near the entrance, Miss Sonozaki turned to Miyuki and grinned. You're pretty good. Getting a compliment from an enemy doesn't make me happy. Miyuki responded tersely to Miss Sonozaki's commendation, then abruptly turned her back. And then, the two of them left it at that and entered the assembly hall. I followed behind them, but stopped when I noticed something. Enemy? What did she mean by that? I stopped in front of the doorway to think it over on my own. Is that it? My wandering thoughts seemed to be connected by a single thread. Mion Sonozaki was the next head of the Sonozaki family. And, of course, her father was a high-ranking Yakuza officer with roots in the Kanto region. The Sonozaki Group was a powerful Yakuza organization centered around Hinamizawa and Okonomiya. I've heard rumors recently that a faction of the Sonozaki Group split off from the Sonozaki family, but people have always misused the name for their own gain. That wasn't anything new. In other words, this is an internal Yakuza conflict. And the reason Miyuki called Miss Sonozaki an enemy was perhaps because she might be en league with the enemy Yakuza? That seemed like a reasonable possibility. She seemed adept at handling firearms, and she had a sharp gaze you've never seen in an ordinary person, so it would make sense if she were with the Yakuza. As I returned to the assembly hall room, Miyuki was wiping her rain-soaked clothes with a cute, floral-patterned hand towel. I stared at her pretty face like a demon stalking its prey, carefully monitoring her movements. What a creep. Could Miyuki actually be with the Yakuza? Are you alright? Yeah. Why don't you dry your clothes too, Ryunosuke? You'll catch a cold if you don't dry off. Right. Not wanting to sit next to Miyuki, I took a seat next to Otobe. I smiled and tried to keep up appearances. If Miyuki really was a Yakuza member, I had mixed feelings about it. That was crazy. Really surprising, huh? Right. Never dealt with anything like that before. Even though I was aware of what was going on, I had no idea how to respond, so I quickly threw together a few meaningless words. Dreamlabs, why must you hurt me this way? This day was full of surprises. I wasn't sure which among them was the most surprising. the feeling of holding a pistol with the safety disengaged, a shootout unfolding right in front of my eyes, the existence of those men in black, Miyuki's true identity. I'm a bit suspicious about that true identity business, but there we go. Everything was far beyond surprising. I was dumbfounded. Ryunosuke, are you alright? Yeah, I'm fine. Miyuki gave me a dubious look, but she said nothing more. I really should have just, like, kept going. I wasn't sure how long the chapter was going to be last time. Goodness, few new tips. Around 4:15 PM on the 3rd, a truck swerved into incoming traffic and collided with a passenger car on a country road in Narita, Chiba Prefecture. After the accident, the riders of the passenger car, Tadashi Hyuga, his wife Yukiko, and their second daughter Masai, were brought to a hospital but died soon afterwards due to the bruising suffered across their entire bodies. The driver of the truck, Kazumi Kajimoto, was seriously hurt in the accident and is currently undergoing intensive care but is expected to recover. According to the Narita Police Department's investigation, the truck was swerving even before the accident site. The driver, Kajimoto, was suspected of falling asleep at the wheel and arrested on the charge of negligent manslaughter. According to acquaintances of the Hyuga family, they were on their way to the airport to pick up their eldest daughter, Machiko, who was returning home after graduating in America. They were a happy family. The kids and parents got along so well. Machiko was really looking forward to coming home, commented a neighbour who was losing her voice from a sudden tragedy. I have no idea what the relevance of that is. I don't recognise any of those names. Don't I? Actually, I think Machiko was one of the people that Otobe came with. Your parents, siblings, or other guardians ask if you'd like to become a debt co-signer. You may not think too much of it. There are many opportunities to act as a co-signer in Japanese society. However, when it comes to joint liability agreements, those shouldn't be decided so easily. Those demand careful judgment and preparations before accepting. A co-signer and a joint liability partner have completely different scope and weight in their responsibilities. A co-signer certifies that a debtor is credible, essentially saying they trust the person they're acting as a guardian for. Fun fact, I had to get somebody to sign off on my name change application, and it had to be somebody who had known me for a while. I think they had to have known me for at least a year, but they couldn't be related or like a close like family friend, which basically ruled out almost everyone. So the person who wound up signing off on it for me was at the time the receptionist at the office I used to work at. And then later I discovered that she'd been sleeping with one of the trainers for a long time, which was a confirmation of gossip that had been going around for ages, which I wasn't so sure whether or not I believed on the basis of who spread the gossip first. And B, it happened after she was engaged. I don't know if it kept going after she got married, because a couple of us went to her wedding and we were talking about that, and we all got kind of uncomfortable and like didn't communicate with her as much afterwards when we sort of put all three of our stories together, because two of the people that I went to the wedding with hadn't been around when I first heard like the original gossip that went around about said trainer. But that's just a fun personal fact about co-signers and the weirdness of people's personal lives. Essentially saying they trust the person they're acting as a guardian for. On the other hand, a joint liability partner bears all the same responsibilities as the borrower. The scope is essentially identical to the debtor themselves. Therefore, when a debtor abandons their obligation to repay their debt, or loses their ability to repay, the responsibility is passed on to the joint liability partner. And even if you're not a signatory yourself, there are cases where responsibility is inherited because a parent was a co-signer. There's even a risk that a person become a post-signer for a person they don't know and be forced to repay a massive debt. This seems like it should be illegal. The joint liability system is unique. The Japanese culture, and very much a product of another era. And thanks to that system, people are essentially able to borrow money using other people as collateral. So for anyone who's accepted a joint liability agreement, or is currently considering accepting one, please understand exactly what it means to become a joint liability partner. I'm guessing that one of Otobe's other friends suffered from that. Man, Captioner is having a really hard time right now. Because it's all fresh from here. How's that? Is that better? Well, now it's not even picking up anything. Come on, Captioner, you can do it. I believe in you. Like... save. Okay, well, we'll see. Untimely death of IT entrepreneur. Masami Hori of the Hori Consulting, pioneer of the IT governance boom and IT entrepreneurship, passed away at 1:30 on the 5th as a result of acute subarachnoid hemorrhaging, age 41. Masamichi focused on the importance of IT infrastructure from early on and was able to accumulate a considerable amount of assets in his role as founder. President Hori's good sense and organisational strength were far beyond any other systems engineer. But as a result, he always felt the need to stay heavily involved in large-scale projects, so he was far too busy to spend any time at home. I wonder if his tireless work at all hours of the day may have contributed to his early death. Concerned parties lamented his untimely death. On the other hand, the death of Hori Consulting's founder forced the company to once again consider a diversified management structure. Economic critics familiar with the situation pointed out that a company led by a single charismatic founder will be in a pinch after their death. Sometimes the founder's role in a venture capital firm is too large for a proper successor to emerge, and this may be one of those cases. The name Masamichi Hori carries tremendous power. Those closest to the deceased, such as his wife, are at the top of the list of people set to take control of the organisation, but the outlook is still uncertain. Hang on, I want to read the first one again, just to... Ah! Oh, okay. Well, maybe the problem is that my mic wasn't working. It's just like a stupid capture. That enabled it and disenabled it. Okay. I just wanted to check the surname. Okay. I did not say east side, I said surname. Close enough. Captain is back and worse than ever. End of chapter 2. Let me just have a quick look-see as to how many chapters there are. This one. Guessing these are... Well, anyway, let's keep going. As usual, we'll go to 11, or we reach a good cliffhanger, or I get so stressed out by the work that I need to do that I decide to stop streaming to finish it. Absent-mindedly sitting on the tatami floor slowly calmed me down. My shirt was damp with sweat and humidity. What the hell happened just a little while ago? Little by little, the gears in my head started spinning. Miss Sonozaki was sitting a short distance away, grooming the sword she'd just used. Miyuki was sitting next to Tawada like nothing had happened at all. Otobe still hadn't come back to his senses from the life-threatening shock we experienced just now. He was breathing erratically, and it looked like he was waiting for someone to say something. Before long, Miss Sonozaki was the first to open her mouth. "All right. As you know, I went looking for my car, but it was gone. As soon as we heard that report, we all fell silent. Isn't that an awfully terrible thing just to come out and say?" "What do you mean?" "I mean, it disappeared. I'm certain that I parked it somewhere not too far from the base of the steps leading to the shrine." "Then, what does that mean?" "That's what I'm trying to say. Maybe my car was demoned away?" "Way." Miss Sonozaki's laughter echoed throughout the assembly hall. I didn't have a clue what she was laughing about. Had she simply surrendered to despair? Or maybe she'd actually found enjoyment in this situation, being isolated from the outside world with our lives on the line. "Could you give me a proper answer? What is it with you? You're hiding something from us, aren't you? What about the guys from before? What's the deal with them? You must have known something. That's why you lent me the gun, right?" She shouted in frustration. But Miss Sonozaki remained silent and calmly listened to what I had to say. Her composure made me all the more irritated. "Can you give me a straight answer? I still have no idea who you are, but those guys were Yakuza, weren't they? We've gotten ourselves involved in a Yakuza conflict?" Still frustrated, I tossed out the theory I came up with just a little while ago. I wasn't sure how close I was to the truth, but I played my cards anyway. I was at my limit. All of our cars had finished, our retreat was cut off, and I wasn't the sort of person who could survive a night of life or death battle. "Arakawa, do you have any evidence for that accusation?" "Evidence?" "Anyway, Arakawa, you look tired. Why not get a little rest?" There wasn't the slightest trace of kindness or gratitude in her tone. What she meant by that was, shut up. But that wasn't enough to convince me. The fear and confusion had driven my patience beyond the limit, and even though I was terrified of Miss Sonozaki until a little while ago, I burst out yelling at her. "My lives are in danger thanks to you. Doesn't that warrant an explanation? Right, Miyuki?" "Huh? Yeah. And that goes for you too, Miyuki. What on earth are you hiding from us? Are you actually a writer? Then how'd you explain that gun?" Miyuki awkwardly looked down and scratched her head, then finished counting the number of bullets left in the magazine of her handgun, and let out a light sigh. She told me she would explain later, but it looked like she had no interest in explaining right now. In fact, she seemed far more interested in determining how many bullets she had left. "What is it, damn it? Stop hiding things and give me a proper answer. Work with me here, people." "Aren't you keeping secrets of your own?" "What?" Miss Sonozaki looked Otobe directly in the eye as she said that. When he noticed that, his shoulders slumped and he started to tremble. "What do you mean?" "Everyone in this room is keeping secrets, right, Otobe?" "I'm not hiding anything." Miss Sonozaki looked at all of our faces, one by one, to make sure. Miyuki forced a smile as she slid the magazine into the handle of her gun. Miss Tawada put her hand on her chest to still its beating. "What is this? What's going on? Was everyone here keeping secrets?" "That goes for you too, right, Arakawa?" "I'm not hiding anything, okay?" "Oh, then let's hear it, Arakawa. Why did you come to this village?" "Why did I come here? I'm an occult writer, didn't I tell you? I'm doing investigative reporting." "Well, that may be true. Your secret is probably the most innocent amongst us. But why do you know so much about the curse of this village?" Right before my eyes, my hands started trembling restlessly. They struggled to maintain their grip on the plastic bottle I was holding. A cold sweat seeped out of my armpits as she said that. What? What was the meaning of that? Wait, could you know about that? How? What are you saying? I have no idea what you're talking about. Stop throwing around false accusations. Miss Sonozaki looked me straight in the eyes as I said that, like she was issuing me a challenge. But I couldn't endure it for more than a second, so I dodged it by taking a sip of the tea in hand. "Then I'll say it. The reason you're fixated on Hinamizawa is because your father was cursed by someone from Hinamizawa and ultimately killed him, right?" I immediately dropped the plastic bottle. How does she do you know about that? Yes, I hit the nail on the head. What happened between your father, the Sonozaki family's daughter, and the young boy who survived? I won't let you say you don't know, all right? Why do you know about that? I'm the one asking questions. Go on, give me an answer. Well, I don't know anything about that. I don't. Judging by the tone of Miss Sonozaki's voice, I got the impression she enjoyed watching me get upset. I looked back at her with a challenging gaze, but unfortunately I couldn't disguise my excessively laboured breathing. Her eyes had the stillness of a corpse. I'd never seen a person with eyes like that before. Honestly, it was uncanny. Long ago, my father was a reporter for a weekly photo magazine. The fierce competition between rival magazines required intensive investigation in order to survive. And so, in 1983, my father interviewed a boy and a girl who were fortunate enough to survive the Hinamizawa gas disaster. The boy was the sole survivor of the school bombing incident perpetrated by another female student. Then, police brought him to the Okonomiya police station to hear his testimony about the incident. He spent the whole night there, which is why he survived the gas disaster the next day. However, he suffered intense mental trauma from losing his parents, classmates, and the entire village all at once, so the boy was hospitalised shortly thereafter. And though the girl lost her sister in the bombing incident, she escaped harm thanks to returning to her home in Okonomiya, but she was just as traumatised as the girl. So my father snuck into the hospitals and heavy-handedly coerced them into telling him their stories. But the boy died a few days after his interview. The cause of death was unknown, but I later heard he was killed by the curse. And not only that, but the content of those interviews included eerie and mysterious predictions, which ultimately gave even more weight to the curse theory. Shortly after that, my father suffered mental instability. He was dismissed from one case after another, and in the end, he couldn't even write a coherent sentence, so they fired him. Sorry, somebody just responded to a tweet of mine from October 2019. Back. He was dismissed from one case after another, and in the end he couldn't even write a coherent sentence, so they fired him. After that, he returned to his hometown and spent his days lazing about. Ultimately, he drowned just as the girl he interviewed prophesied. That's right. I remember. I'm certain that the girl's last name was Sonozaki, so she must be a relative of this Mion Sonozaki. Many things happened after that, but in the end, my grandparents gave me my father's diary and interview materials. I took those bizarre and eerie materials and compiled them into a story about weird supernatural phenomena, then submitted it to the editorial department. The article garnered a surprisingly strong reception, and it had a bit of surge of popularity once it got posted on some news site online. That story caused the Hinamizawa occult boom to catch fire, and finally earned me a name as an occult writer. Even though my father was the one who worked so hard to gather their intel, in reality, I was the one to benefit from it. In a sense, I received all the recognition that my father should have received, but the outcome couldn't be helped. But what happened to my father when he interviewed those people from Hinamizawa? Who were those survivors my father spoke to? Even if it wasn't part of my job, I absolutely wanted to know. So I had to figure out what my father was searching for, and that was why I decided to come to Hinamizawa. Arakawa, what do you mean? Do you think we're being punished for what your father did? That's impossible. Arakawa, what's wrong? You look so pale. It's nothing. My heart was pulsing like an alarm bell, and no matter how many times I sipped from my oolong tea, my throat quickly dried up. I hadn't said anything. So, how did Miss Sonozaki know about my father? Arakawa, what on earth did your father do? Did he do something terrible enough to deserve being cursed? Hell no. I turned to Otobe and spat those words out. He wanted to go out throwing accusations? Well, so did I. Now let me ask, what about you? You're hiding something too, aren't you? Me? I pointed my spear towards Otobe and let loose. Nervous, indecisive Otobe seemed like the easiest one to attack. I haven't done anything to warrant being cut. Seriously? Yes, really. He turned his gaze downwards and cut off the conversation, but it was clear to all of us that he was putting on an act. Wow. But, then let me ask, what is this? Miss Sonozaki thrust a single card right up to the tip of Otobe's nose. It looked like it was a cash card. Otobe gasped and his eyes opened wide. Then he quickly checked his back pocket, turned towards the cash card once more. Otobe's face was starting to develop a twitch. This fell out of your back pocket a little while ago. I'll ask again. Whose card is this? That's... This name here doesn't look like your name, does it? It says Chiaki Hori. So who is this Chiaki? Otobe nervously fidgeted as he gazed at the card. It reminded me of a small animal, standing face to face with its natural predator. Explain yourself. This thing fell out of your pocket, Otobe, so why does it have someone else's name written on it? Otobe? His face turned completely pale. His heart was beating so hard it felt like I could hear it from the seat next to me. Thought I heard the bridge honking. I was wrong. Miss Sonozaki continued staring him directly in the eyes and didn't look away for even a moment. Otobe, what are you hiding? Nothing. Why don't you tell us the truth already? Like when your cell phone broke. You broke it yourself, didn't you, Otobe? Bit by bit, Miyuki continued her verbal assault. Otobe reacted sharply and looked up after each comment. All this time I was wondering why only your phone was broken. It's because it was the only one that could connect, wasn't it? Sounds right, doesn't it? That's what I think. And let me ask you this. Otobe, was your phone actually able to connect? It was able to connect, okay? What are you even saying? I was talking to the police back then. You were listening, weren't you, Miss Soramachi? But isn't that a bit strange? Otobe, your phone is the same model as Sonozaki's, right? They're the same. Why was your phone the only one that could connect? Surely it'd be more to do with the network that one's on rather than the model, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Manufacturing variation? I wouldn't know. Is that so? But is that really what this is? Otobe's lips were quivering. Miyuki continued putting pressure on him. Her ruthless assault had even me shivering. Otobe did his best to pretend he was still calm, but his attempt was woefully unsuccessful. His laboured breathing echoed through the entire assembly ring, filling the surrounding area with a tense atmosphere. I think it was because of manufacturing differences, and what? I'm certain I was able to connect earlier. The antenna just happened to show a signal. Even I don't know why it was able to connect. Miyuki took a deep breath. My initial impression of her as a lively, earnest, cute girl was all but gone. Replaced with that was the visage of a bird of prey, stalking a small, defenseless animal. That may be true. Right? So there's nothing all that weird about it. His full smile had a light twitch to it. He must have misunderstood what Miyuki was saying, and believed she was convinced. Or maybe he's trying to tell himself that. However, Miyuki wasn't about to let him escape. In fact, she was luring him to the final stage. Oh right, let me tell you one more thing. Uh-huh? This village is completely outside of the service area. It's an uninhabited village. There's no reason to have signal relays out here. I don't think you can get out this by saying an old signal tower might have been working. The whole area has been sealed off since 1983. Back then, none of the villagers would have had cell phones. No way. If you knew that from the start, then I was waiting for you to come clean about it. Honestly, I don't enjoy dragging people into a corner like this, but I couldn't keep quiet any longer. Now let me ask you once more. Your phone wasn't actually able to connect, was it? that's right. That was all he could say in response. Dejectedly bowed his head. The gesture was an admission of defeat. I'm sorry. I lied to you all. It's just as Sarah Machi says. My phone couldn't connect either. I was just pretending to get through. Then when you notified the police, that was a lie. I was just pretending to talk on the phone. He continued looking down as he said that, and thanks to that, his face looked like that of a misbehaving child. I lied about contacting the police, but if we make it out of this, we can do something, so... Wait, hold on. Does that mean you actually stole that cash card? Yes. You? Sorry. I didn't want the police involved until after I got the money. That's why you broke your phone? Right. I was afraid someone might notice that my phone couldn't connect. If that happened, I wouldn't be able to hide it any longer. That's not all you're hiding from us, is it? Where'd you get the cash card from? So I had assumed up until this point, up until he said I was waiting until I could get the money, that they had a suicide pact and that he chickened out. But now I'm wondering if he chickened out in inverted commas. No more secrets. Otobe drooped even further down as Miyuki asked that in a scathing tone. He drooped more and more until he couldn't go any further. Otobe, tell us everything. What are you so frightened about? Well, I was... After a long pause, he started apologising over and over. The sound echoed miserably here and there, with some sobbing mixed in. Oh no! I'm sorry. So what are you sorry about? First, such a miserable excuse for a human being. Huge tears, started accumulating in his eyes, and spinning to the ground. And Sonozaki gently stroked his trembling shoulder, then urged him on in a voice filled with tenderness, as deep as the ocean. Tell us, what happened? Okay. It started in the spring of last year when I came to Tokyo. Otobe began quietly talking about his past. I never thought of myself as the kind of person who'd stay in the countryside forever. My father was a government worker and my mother was a housewife. Everyone in the area was acquainted with everyone else. Amidst their strict values and well-defined human relationships, there was one value that was absolutely essential to survival: cooperation. I was worried I'd spend the rest of my life in such a tiny world, so I felt desperate. I couldn't see anything in my future. No dreams to aspire to. My father tried to get me a job at a local company, but I hated it. I figured I could probably work things out if I went to Tokyo. I cannot face doing my normal Otobe voice, which I still don't really have worked out all the time, so he's got this weird, like, I'm sad and whispering my story one now. I poured my heart and soul into studying, then took an entrance exam for a university in Tokyo. Don't give up. Country folk like you won't be able to get by in Tokyo. Please, get a job around here, find a wife to settle down with, and make lots of cute grandchildren to make your father happy. I don't think that way of living is right for me. Akira? I've already decided. If I get accepted to a school in Tokyo, I'm going. But if I don't get in, then I'll stay here and do as you asked. And then I got accepted. It was some university I'd never heard of, but it was a college in Tokyo, so that was good enough for me. You really did get accepted, and you have my support, so do your best. Even though I expected my mother to be opposed, for some reason she was pleased. Although I intended to work to pay my tuition, my mother talked to my father about it, and in the end they decided to pay for my tuition and expenses. Study hard. It's probably for the best to venture out of the local area once in your lifetime. To be honest, I couldn't believe my father would say something like that. They had a good reason for supporting me. I understood that. My parents were convinced I'd return to the country in the future. Travelling to Tokyo was just a momentary event. Just a little longer than a vacation. That way of thinking was what allowed them to send me off. The money my parents gave me was like a chain shackled to my ankle. A debt to be repaid. They saw it as an investment, so I'd be forced to return to the countryside right away if they were ever to take it away. But I wouldn't stand for that. I had no intention of ever going back there. I intended to plant my roots in Tokyo once I got out of college. Study hard. Make a man of yourself quickly and make your father happy. Thank you for looking after me until now. Take care, Mum. Akira, what are you talking about? Anyway, I'm sure life in Tokyo will be hard, so work hard out there. You don't have to tell me to work hard. See you later, Mum. Mum came all the way to the local station to see me off, but I coldly sent her away. The countryside, parents, I cast them all aside. I took the first step towards my ambition. Everything in Tokyo felt fresh. Unlike high school, I didn't have to go to class early in the morning. They offered lectures in the afternoon and the evening, and it was easy to skip class and have a classmate answer the roll call in my place. The city was nothing like I complained about it. Instead, it was full of fashionably dressed girls, classmates who felt far more worldly than me. And there were trendy shops and amusement districts. Though I didn't have to pay for tuition, I did start working a part-time job to help cover my living expenses. Every day I'd wake up around noon, spend some time at the university, then work my part-time job until the evening. My co-workers taught me all kinds of things. How to drink, how to dance, how to ask girls out, after spending time with them. I started to develop an inferiority complex compared to my classmates. I felt like a child. My co-workers introduced me to all kinds of girls. Shortly after starting college, I began going out with a girl living in a luxury apartment complex in Hayama. She had a long, slender neck like a giraffe. She dressed to match cutting-edge trends and wore a lot of expensive accessories. She felt like a real Tokyo girl, and I liked that about her. But she was an expensive girl. She worked at a cabaret club, so she brought in far more income than me, but she never opened her wallet. Meals and entertainment were always on me. I believed that was a man's responsibility. Shopping was one of her favourite pastimes, so I'd buy something for her any time we went together. I bought her all kinds of matching clothes. I was surprised to learn they even made t-shirts that cost 500,000 yen apiece. But I was also impressed that there were people in Tokyo who could drop 50,000 yen on something like that. And she bought those expensive t-shirts without a second thought. She said she wanted me to wear it, so I bought one for myself too. I thought about how these flimsy t-shirts could cost 50,000 yen, and my heart ached to know that an entire week's worth of pay would go to a single shirt. The store clerk recommended some cool-looking clothes that matched the shirt, so I even bought some jeans and a sweater to go along with it. Since my feet were in the door, I bought some matching boots too. Combined with the jeans, t-shirt and sweater, it came to a total of nearly 300,000 yen. When I brought out my wallet to pay for all those clothes, I noticed it looked shabby too, so she and I went to a discount shop and bought a brand name leather wallet. And then I noticed how much my worn-out cheap watch illustrated my meagre upbringing. I was prepared to dive in headfirst by that point, so I brought a brand new name watch from a pawn shop. I felt 2 or 3 times as cool any time I was around her. I felt like I was being reborn and it felt good. I was no longer the pathetic Akira Otobe who was harassed by his friends and always fought with his parents. I was a completely new Akira Otobe, full of youthful freedom, who took cute girls and cool clothes out in the constantly changing world of Tokyo. That's what I wanted to be. I ended up going to school less and less often. I stopped talking to my class and spent more time with my co-workers. And when I did occasionally go to class, I had no idea what any of it meant. And I no longer had friends to ask questions. I didn't enter college to study in the first place, so I finally stopped going to school at all. However, living above my means was really hard. No matter how much I worked, how much I spent on clothes, how much I treated myself to luxurious meals and kept up appearances, somewhere deep down I still felt empty. In order to fill that void, I kept spending time with my girlfriend, and I kept earning money at my part-time job. In order to be the Akira Otobe I wanted to be, I needed money. It didn't take long before I started taking out small loans to get the money for these activities. My parents transferred money each month to pay for rent, but I started using that to pay the debts that were piling up left and right. I'd accumulated debts 10 times that amount. I even borrowed money to repay my debt. I believe in you, so I'll offer you a loan of 1 million yen with no collateral. But let me just say, this is a one-time thing. I'm only doing this loan for you, because you're diligent and talented. I'm lending it without collateral because I believe you'll be able to repay it. This is just for you. Excited by those sweet words, I turned to street money and black market lending. The compound interest continued to accumulate, and the outcome was inevitable. I fled the apartment I was living in under the cover of night. I lost contact with my girlfriend right around that time. Eventually, collections agents started coming to my school in part-time jobs, so I had no choice but to find a new job. I cycled through several jobs. I couldn't work in a single place for long or the collections agents would find me. I didn't have a place to call my own, so I couldn't make friends at work either. Nobody was interested in talking to a debt-ridden person like me in the first place. But even if I worked morning until night and only spent the rest of my time sleeping, I couldn't raise up more than 300,000 yen in a month. There was nothing I could do to keep up with the interest compounding each month, much less make payments towards the principal. No matter how hard I worked, and even with a wage increase of 10 yen per hour, it did little to reduce my debt. So I calculated how long it would take to repay my debt, living like this. 70 years. I couldn't go back to college. I wasn't able to attend a single class, so I couldn't get any credit. If I leave the university, I won't be able to find a job. It's not impossible to get a proper job as a high school graduate, but it had already been so long since I graduated that I couldn't do it. There's no way to explain that gap after entering college. Even if I could get a real job, collections agents would show up there and ruin it soon enough. I couldn't talk to my parents. My parents would be shocked, outraged, and abusive. In the end, they'd forsake me. My father would beat me and my mother would coldly watch. They'd shout, "We believed in you," with tears in their eyes. It was plain to see what would happen at home. I didn't want to go back to the countryside. I had no choice but to live my life jumping between part-time jobs paying just 800 yen per hour. And I had spent an entire lifetime trying to repay a debt that can't be repaid in a lifetime. That crushing sense of vain effort caused me to give up on working altogether. What awaited me afterwards was a life of peering out the shut curtains of my tiny 4.5 tatami sized apartment to make sure there weren't any collections agents between here and the convenience store 30 meters away. I couldn't go shopping if collections agents were out there. I'd keep quiet and spend the rest of the day at home. And travelling more than 30 meters away was out of question. There was a risk I'd get kidnapped if the collections agents found me. I even hesitated to step out of my apartment to take the trash, fear of collections agents wandering around. Then I realised my life had reached a deadlock. I still had the same cell phone number, but I had no desire to check the incoming messages. More than 20 messages arrived on the answering machine every day. "You received life insurance when you borrowed this money, you know? That way you won't be a burden to your bereaved family. Do you understand what I'm saying? Do you think you can keep running forever? Now, why not contact me? I can introduce you to a good source of income. Just do what I tell you, and I can have the interest on your debt forgiven. Only the interest, though." Kra? That was my girlfriend's voice. "It's been a long time. I went to your apartment for the first time in a while, but there were some scary-looking people around, so I couldn't get close. What's going on?" I didn't detect a hint of concern about me in her voice. She probably found a new boyfriend after she got sick of me, but she got sick of him too, and that's why she's calling me. I had a feeling that was the case. Friends are disposable. I remember her saying that once before. She goes out with people when they're convenient for her, and replaces them as soon as they become inconvenient. According to her, we live in an ever-changing era, so there's no way to know who might drop out of your life or when. You have to keep a watchful eye to ensure these people who are left behind don't hold you back. In order to avoid falling victim to bad situations, it's important to always check the people you deal with to ensure they're worth keeping in touch with. It seems like you've had a lot of troubles, but do your best. See ya. That was all she said in her message. There was no concern for me at all. No sign of her reaching out a helping hand. Something bad happened, so it's best to keep a distance. That was the conclusion she reached. She was cutting me off entirely. I'd already served my purpose. As far as she was concerned, I was dead weight. Even though the two of us went to those places together, even though we walked through all those places together, holding hands, I clenched at one of those 50,000 yen t-shirts I only bought because it matched hers. 50,000 yen for this? This lifestyle was the price of that? I was attracted to someone like her? I held the t-shirt against my face. I felt miserable and ashamed, but all I could do was cry. Deep down, I realised I'd wasted my life on meaningless things. As I continued sobbing, I pressed the play button on the answering machine once more. "Akira, I have a friend willing to lend you some money. What do you think? The interest is a bit steep, though." "This is Casey Sports Club. Since your membership fee hasn't been paid for 3 months, we've had to cancel your membership. Regarding your unpaid balance. This is the Kaga University staff office. You still haven't filled your schedule for the upcoming semester. Please come to the university at your earliest convenience. This is the store manager of the Million Stones Tavern. Don't come back again. On account of your chronic unannounced absences, you're fired. You really need to get your shit together. None of it mattered. These were people I thought I was close to. People I respected. People I believed would offer to help me find people. But every one of them turned their noses up at me. The reality of that was difficult to bear alone. But it couldn't be helped. I brought this on myself. This is the price of the selfish life I've been living. Nobody will lend a helping hand to someone like me. Everyone looked down on me for putting up a fake front. I pushed everyone away, so I don't have any friends left. And then the last message on the answering machine was, Sakura, are you doing well? It's a familiar voice. Mum? I can't get a hold of you on the phone, and all the letters I send you get sent back. You doing alright? Chest tightened. For all this time. I kept gazing at the flashing button. I should have been disgusted too. But as soon as I did, tears came overflowing. Even though I despised so many things about her. Am I crying? She always tried to do whatever Dad wanted. She was always good at reading his mood. So she always tried to control me to meet Dad's whim. Say this to improve Dad's mood, do that to make Dad happy. But don't do anything he wouldn't like. My father said that men had no use for literature, so he only ever bought me scientific journals. Even though I liked geography, my father believed that history was far more important. He forced me to learn Japanese. He said that music wasn't suitable for men, so I had to abandon the woodwind ensemble I wanted at elementary school. In the end, I joined the kendo club, but it didn't suit me at all. It just wasn't very good, so my upperclassmen bullied me over my lack of trying to improve. I lost all my self-confidence, started acting more timid and distancing myself from my classmates. Boys made fun of me all the time, the girls constantly giggled at me behind my back. I still remember those miserable days in the countryside. Go back there, ever again. But I can't stay here either. I have nowhere to go. Father told me not to, but I was just feeling a bit concerned. So how is Tokyo? Working hard on your studies? Be nice to hear your voice once in a while. As if I could call her. No matter why she called. I decided it was best not to tell her about how I was feeling. I may not understand your dreams, but please do your best. You can do it if you give it your all. I'll always be there for you. It can't be true. Even though I thought that, I still wanted to believe in my mother's love. Mum will always be there for me. Is that really true? Is she actually trying to encourage me? Please help me. I don't know what to do when it's painful. Please help. Father's still a bit upset with you, but I'm sure he'd accept you if he could see you living a respectable life. Do your best, Sakura. Message complete. To listen again, press 1. To save. I restored the message and stared at the phone. My vision was fogged over with tears. They could see me living a respectable life. It's no longer possible for me to live a proper life. Did I go wrong? What was it I wanted? I felt so miserable that I wanted to die. I was special. I didn't have a dream or a concrete something to work. But I swore back then I would always try my best. But I never found an opportunity like that. When I first came to Tokyo, I felt like I was reborn as a different person. I was completely ecstatic. Somewhere deep in my heart, I realised I was living a depraved life. But I thought if I could pay back the money I borrowed, I could find something to be passionate about. But I wasn't someone special. I couldn't find anything to be passionate about. Insert a hero from Ghost Quartet here. A song that I listen to very often. Prayer, then Hero. Devastating. Your best, Akra. Mum's words echoed inside my ears. I can't go back now. I can't go forward either. Thinking that, feeling completely helpless, I stepped outside for the first time and felt the raindrops strike me. When I came to my senses, I was on the internet and had reached a specific site. 117 name. 117 name Ak. 2006, May 5th, 2006, Friday, at just before midnight. Did you see this issue of the Weekly 7? Mentions an occult spot called Hinamizawa Village. I don't think they'd find us in a place like that. What do you think? I've read the Weekly 7. Sounds good. Mentioned gas disaster happened in June, so there should be even fewer people around then. How about the second Monday in June? If you can, I'm sure this weather will be nice. I hope it'll go well this time. Is it okay to do this with just 3 people? Some were up there. I felt something resembling human warmth. And when I noticed that, I wrote too. I'd like to come too. Looking forward to it. I let out a huge sigh after writing that. Death would be more appropriate for someone like me. I no longer cared about being alive. So I gathered together 3 like-minded people. 4 of us decided we wanted to die together in Hinamizawa. One of the lights in the assembly hall started to flicker erratically. Nevertheless, Otobe completely ignored the light bulb and continued his story. This is awful. I never thought my article would be used to determine a suicide spot. It's too much. I'm sorry. Does that mean that you were also in that car with the other 3 people? Yeah. Otobe continued drooping apologetically as he nodded to me. This might be a strange thing to say, but even though I came here to die, I was having fun. Everyone was so nice. Today, well, the date has already changed, so yesterday, even though I only met these people for the first time yet, they felt like they'd been my friends for a long time. Otobe began speaking once more, and nobody tried to interrupt. The sky was nice and blue that day, just like Mochi wanted. We all lived fairly far apart, so in the end we decided to meet at the station. The first time I came to Tokyo City, back in last spring, was when I felt my first taste of the city. Businessmen dressed in fancy suits and gorgeous office ladies that looked like they belonged in magazines, hanging out at exotic foreign coffee shop, and the station was surrounded by tall, stylish buildings. The clamour of people was like the omnipresent background of an urban area. But now I was able to recognise every last one of them had no bearing on my life. Back then, everything was shining bright, but now it all looked so dingy. All the things I once longed for were ostentatious phonies. Nice to meet you. I'm the user called Akun. My name is Akutagawa. Akun, huh? The man smiling and bowing his head in front of the car was, surprisingly, a man roughly in his 40s. He had a gentlemanly aura, like all the businessmen from around here. Like him wants to commit suicide? I couldn't hide my surprise. And I'm Machi, short for Magico. We won't be knowing each other very long, but feel free to call me Machi. She looked like she was still in her teens. She was wearing really pretty makeup. She was probably still in high school. Her skin was shiny. She had a miniskirt stretched across her slender legs. She seemed like a perfectly normal girl, the likes of which you'd find anywhere. Would a girl like her? I'm Chiaki. Chiaki is actually my real name and my online handle too. Chiaki bashfully said that. She was a beautiful woman in her late 20s. She had a gentle demeanour and gave off the atmosphere of someone living a wealthy lifestyle. She was dressed in nicely tailored clothes, but her elegance and dignity to this world. She felt like a platinum, truly refined lady. Nice to meet you. I'm Otobe. Otobe is my real name. As I bowed my head, I looked around to make sure no collections agents were nearby. You look nervous, but don't worry, Otobe. After all, this is everyone's first time dying. Akutagawa could tell I was, so he gave me a reassuring smile as he said that. He thinks I'm afraid to die, but the truth is I'm not scared at all. The fact that I was going to die soon actually had me feeling excited. I was feeling more stressed about my first real-life meeting with my internet friends. I was about to get in a car with strangers and go somewhere, but I was happy to be going with other people other than on my own. Eventually, the car took off with Akutagawa behind the wheel. I took the passenger seat and the ladies were in the back seats. Even though I was in the passenger seat, I tucked my head down to avoid being spotted by any debt collectors who might be looking at the car. I was able to raise my head, feel some peace of mind after the car got up to a decent speed. Chiaki held some sweets out to me. Would you like one? They're from my local bakery and they're quite delicious. Thanks. The candy was full of butter and brandy, very tasty. The flavour of something was grating, but it was a nice feeling too. Sharing something tasty with someone else, that alone was enough to remind me what it was like to experience happiness. I bought something too. Care for a chocolate? I received a chocolate from it. Must have been foreign chocolate, because the package was in English. It looked nice and sticky on the inside too. That was the first time I'd ever tasted chocolate. It's so sweet, huh? There's no way I can eat them all. I bought a whole box because it was on sale, but it ended up being way too much. Care for another? She said that gleefully and handed me another. Her smile was bright and carefree. I never thought someone could smile that earnestly without eating junk food. This is some great weather, huh? Nice and sunny. This is our last day, so I hope the weather stays like this. As he said that, I remembered we were on our way to die. It didn't feel real. I should have put content warning in the title ages ago, and I got, like, caught up in the story. For real. I fiddled with my phone. Calls today. Your best, Akira. Mum's voice echoed in my ears again. I hadn't received a call from my parents since then, and of course I didn't have the courage to call them back. Do your best, Akira. She'd send, please come home, instead of do your best. Are you that concerned about your phone? Playing with my phone in the passenger seat all this time, Akutagawa called out to me. Oh, there's someone out there who'd like to hear one last time. Why not give them a call? It's okay. I don't have anyone like that. Really? You still have time. There's no need to worry. I'm fine. Really. That's all. I powered off my cell phone. Eventually, the car pulled into Shishibane and began climbing the mountain road. It's almost time. She reapplied her mascara and touched up her lips. Her face looked radiant, like she was all set for a date with her lover. After arriving in Hinami's, we parked the car in a suitable location and started making preparations. Even up until this point, it felt like a sweet project. No ghosts, huh? They called this a village of the dead, so I expected something more. I was hoping to see my dead family. But I'll be able to see them soon enough. Family's dead? Yeah. That one went in Manchi. Everyone began sharing their personal stories. I was surprised to hear it. Everyone had their own tragic episodes that drove them to Manchi lost her entire family. Akutagawa was saddled with the debt of others. Chiaki lost her husband. All of them did everything in their power to keep going before turning to suicide. I, on the other hand, was full of myself and did whatever I liked. I just fooled around for my own satisfaction and suffered the consequences of my actions. I was ashamed. Honestly, I was so ashamed. And up until today, I couldn't stop thinking about how I could have done more for him. I wanted to tell him by any means necessary. I wanted to apologise for not being by his side at the precious of time. It doesn't matter how much money you earn. It's pointless if you never have a chance to spend it. Chiaki reached into her handbag as she said that. This is what he gained from his tireless work. I don't need it anymore. So I thought it should deliver it to him himself. I pulled a bank book, a signature stamp and a gift card out of the bag. Fixated on those items. I heard a faint inside my head. This is what he gained from his tireless work. So much is in there. That money, could I start all over? He worked his body ragged. In the end, he worked himself to death. I wish I'd told him not to work so hard. I pretended not to see it. Even though he earned all that money to give me a carefree life, I resented him for spending enough time with me. He wasn't fit to be his wife. You marry someone else to start over. Even though I knew I was speaking out of this, I couldn't help but say something. That's not something like living over, is it? Because that was enough money to keep on living, doing anyway. I don't have anything, and there's nothing else I can do, so I chose to die. Why? Otobe, that's none of your... No, it's alright. He was the only one I loved. From now on, I'll never love anyone else. He was my only reason to live. Next time, I hope we can hold hands as husband and stay together forever. Chiaki and Higurashi to say all that. Chiaki was about to die with all that felt. My heart was beating like mad while I listened to her story. Start over. That money will start a new life. As I listened to Chiaki's story on the road to the feeling of hope started to emerge inside me. Well then, would you like to share your story, Otobe? Oh, sure. Before I realised it was my turn to share my story. But now my heart was bursting with hope. I no longer had a reason for wanting to die. I wasn't sure exactly how much she had, all the wealth right there. That money I could start over. I don't want to die. Should I? Not when I still have the chance. My selfish desire to live. My pathetic, ridiculous desire to see another day. Haunted by those thoughts, I struggled to force a smile, painfully bit down on my tongue. I won't force you to say it. Let's stop this for now. It's okay, Otobe. It will all be over soon. Finally be released from our suffering. Yeah. That was all I could say. I still didn't want to die. I wasn't so attached to living until just now. Right, everyone, let's meet again on the other side. Goodbye, Higurashi, Otobe, Mochi. Our time together was short. Thank you. Goodbye. That's right. I can start over. I can start everything over. I can still do it. Sunset stained the sky a deep red. I could hear the cry of the Higurashi coming through the door. Mochi said she was glad it was sunny. Chiaki said this was a perfect place to die. And Kitagawa said we'll meet on the other side. Seriously? Sure, it's nice weather, but what's so great about that? This is a vacant area without any people nearby. It's probably the worst place to die. We'll meet on the other side? Still too soon for me. After everyone fell asleep, I climbed out the car alone. Outside, the sun shined down on the thick grey clouds in the sky, and in no time, the surrounding area was covered in darkness, impossible to tell right from left. But all I could think about was tightly holding the property I took from Chiaki as I ran down the pitch-black mountain road. But it started to rain as soon as I left the car. The road was muddy and I stumbled over and over. Then, as I ran around in total darkness, I lost my way. I glanced at my watch. It was 2 a.m. 5 men and women gathered together in this assembly hall with a broken light bulb, one of them surrounded by the remaining 4, as if to condemn him for his stupid mistakes. So you kept running and you stumbled on a tree or something, tumbled down a hill, and that's how you ended up meeting me? That's right. You made up that story about the car with your friends disappearing? Yes. Sorry. I'm really sorry. So you knew all the people who committed suicide? Right. Sorry, I'm sorry. Hell? Your master decided to take your life with barely a second thought. And what's more, you took your friend's bank book and ran. Miss Sonozaki stood up. Then she donned a more harsh expression than she'd worn until now. Spoke up. How utterly spineless. How disgusting. Sorry. Otobe fell down on his face on the spot, his shoulders trembling. In that moment, all the tears strung across his face spilled down onto the floor. Okay, take that content warning out now. Really sorry. Wait, does that mean you're the one who kidnapped Kurosawa? I too looked down at Otobe with disgust, but as soon as he realised the meaning of my words, he fiercely looked up with his face still littered in tears. I don't know anything about that. I know nothing about Kurosawa. Do you expect us to believe that? You're all the dead and you've been lying to us this whole time. How can we believe anything you have to say? I really don't know anything. No, please believe me. Honestly, I don't know anything. I already know that much. There's no way a weakling like you could successfully catch a living person, kill them, and hide the evidence. Indeed. Miyuki clearly agreed with Miss Sonozaki. How can the two of them be so sure of that? What makes them so confident? Miyuki was gazing straight at Tawada. Her expression made it look like she was silently questioning him. Oof, yike. One entire yike. Possibly more. Mr. Wada, do you... Pardon me. Move out of the way for a minute. Huh? Mr. Wada was sitting in front of the closet door. She began trembling for a moment, but she quickly mustered a smile and tilted her head. Saramachi, what's wrong? You two. You're hiding something, aren't you? Miyuki nonchalantly asked that, but it didn't seem like she was seeking answers. In fact, it seemed like she wanted to confirm something she already knew. Once again, emphasizing how little I understood this person I called, Miyuki. Oh my god, I can't type. I'm updating the title so that it's more accurate, but I'm in the dark and it's difficult to type. She spoke in a calm tone, with a lovely smile, but the words she uttered had a bit of venom beneath them. It reminded me of a snake slowly strangling its prey. And her eyes were shining, like the blade of a finely sharpened knife. It's not a big deal, but would you step aside and let me check over there? Sure. The tone sounded intimidating. It was hard to believe that voice came from someone with such a gentle face. And Miss Tawada quickly rose to her feet under the pressure. However, even though she stood up, she didn't move from the spot. Miyuki, what's wrong? You'll understand once you see. Something's in the closet. Oh, Miss Tawada? What is it? What do you think's in there? You'll know once you see it. So please, step aside. Sorry, Machi. What grounds do you have for saying that? Don't change the subject. Or what? Do you want me to say everything? Miss Tawada did her best to resist Miyuki's frightening glare, but that sharp gaze was too much for her to bear, and she couldn't find the words to respond. But even so, she maintained her position in front of the closet, and refused to move aside. Can you tell us? If you're willing to talk, I won't pry any further. How about her? Just, what do you think you're talking about? The two of them fiercely glared at one another from point-blank range. And then, Miyuki let out a brief sigh, shook her head, and casually adjusted her hair as she continued. Okay, then it can't be helped. I'll explain it myself. What happened to your lover, Osawa? You know where he is, don't you? Why would I? And how does that have anything to do with this closet? I saw it earlier. There was a human hand inside. Right? Fortunately, I accidentally had this spoiled for me, so it's not shock horror. But the moment Miss Sonozaki chimed in, Miss Tawada gasped, and Miyuki's facial expression didn't change at all, like she already knew. But wait a minute. Human hands in the closet? Can't be serious. But why would something like that be in this closet? What do you mean? What's this about a hand? You're saying something like that is in there? Hey! I rose to my feet, pushed Miss Tawada aside and put a hand on the sliding door. I could see her gasping face out the corner of my eye, but that didn't matter now. There's no way a person could be hiding in there. Several comforters were neatly stacked on the upper shelf, and multiple futons were carefully folded on the bottom shelf. I looked for this human hand, but couldn't see it anywhere. What is this? I don't see a hand anywhere. I felt relieved. There's no way a human hand would be in a place like that, right? What were the two of them talking about? What is that supposed to mean? Saw a hand? No wonder. I'm just telling you what I saw. Besides, I haven't said a word to implicate you as the culprit. Guess you were just mistaken about what you saw. There was a human hand. I would have noticed in a place like this. I would have noticed it when I pulled out a blanket earlier. Is that so? Miyuki stared back at Mr. Wada. Her eyes were bitterly cold. Ryunosuke, would you give me just a moment? Miyuki pushed me aside and stood directly in front of the closet. Then she carefully pulled the comforters down, one by one. Please stop. If you insist on pulling out the futons, I'll do it. That's okay. I don't want to pull out the futon. Not already. Up a shell? What? What's with you all of a sudden? As Miyuki pushed Tawada aside, she reached into the bedding and hit something. Then she turned to look at the girl for a moment, before pulling out the comforter. The next moment, laying there, something fell out from the space between the futon. It was a human hand? What is this? Miyuki grabbed the hand and pulled without a second thought. Given its position, applied an incredible amount of force to pull it. Before long, I heard the owner of that hand tumbling down to the floor. What? Back on the off-shelf and futons on the bottom shelf, she pulled out the... I'm confused about the logistics of this. Him? No way! It was Kurosawa, the man who was sleeping here just a little while ago. Tawada turned and screamed. She covered her mouth with both her hands and stared on with a look of bewilderment in her eyes. Why? How? What is Takumi doing in a place like this? Takumi? Within a moment, she was clinging to him, but he didn't respond to its call. His head and hands streaked with no strength behind them, and he didn't move at all. It can't be. Takumi. Why? Mr. Wada continued clinging to Kurosawa as she cried out, but his face was pale and he didn't move a muscle. He was clearly dead. Tawada, how did this? Someone's really dead. Takumi. However, two sets of eyes were staring intently at Mr. Wada. Sonozaki and Miyuki. Miyuki? You done now? Hold on, Miyuki. Her boyfriend just died. She's grieving. Can't you choose your words more carefully? That's rather cold of you. Otobe watched on and spoke in admonishing tone. However, Miyuki didn't respond to either of us beyond a distorted smile on the edge of her lips. Well, call me cold-hearted if you will. Miss Wada, I need you to let me investigate this corpse for a moment. Without giving Mr. Wada an opportunity to refuse, Miyuki put her hands on Kurosawa's corpse and started checking his pupils. She was like a professional handling an autopsy. Miss Sonozaki approached the body too and began examining his face. And then their eyes slowly turned to Mr. Wada. Anyway, are you done now? I do have a question. You knew about this from the start, didn't you? You knew that Takumi Kurosawa's corpse was in here the whole time. Huh? What? Otobe and I both raised our voices in surprise. Then, Mr. Wada emphatically gasped and opened her eyes wide in shock. Well, tell us the truth. Not true. You disappeared and I... Stop hiding things. Didn't we have the discussion earlier? Please stop joking around. Don't chastise me and say whatever you please. Mr. Wada shouted emotionally and stared with determination. However, her gaze quickly fell to the floor as if repelled. You knew, didn't you? Isn't that why you didn't want us to look? Before long, she realised it would be meaningless to say anything in her defence, so she faintly nodded with a fatigued expression on her face. Why were you hiding this until now? You should have consulted with us. I'm sorry. Truth is, I found the corpse a little while ago. In here, when I opened the closet. So you knew he was dead in there? For how long? Around when the men in black were making a ruckus and all of you were outside. I wasn't feeling well, so I went to the closet, hoping to get myself a pillow. But Takumi's corpse was... Then you're saying he was already in there by the time we came back here? I'm sorry. I was afraid you'd suspect me, so I couldn't say anything. Suspect you? Why would we suspect you? Because, aside from me, there was nobody else here. We found him. I'd be the first to be suspected. Mr. Wada's voice was hoarse and quivering intermittently. I understand how she must have felt, but doesn't hiding it make it even more suspicious? You were completely overthinking it. If you told us about this from the beginning, we would have stood by your side. I'm so sorry. When I saw Takumi's body, I couldn't understand it. I panicked. I was alone and didn't know what to do. And now, though I was still hesitant, that was enough to explain Mr. Wada's suspicious behaviour. But regarding what happened afterwards and who killed Kurosawa, but just then, Otobe seemed to have regained his composure, spoke up while rubbing his neck. What is it, Otobe? About that? Doesn't that sound a little strange? What about it strange? Because Kurosawa was attacked near the shrine gate, wasn't he? So why would the culprit bring him to a place like this? Now that you mention that, that is true. I was near the entrance of the assembly hall during that entire gunfight. There's no way that someone could have snuck a corpse in here without being seen, right? Thinking it over, a terrible thought crept up on me. It was an absolutely impossible situation for a murder. That's right. When did the killer transport the corpse here, without us noticing? No. Maybe it was right after the attack near the shrine gate, when everyone had gone to the storehouse, or when you were out searching for Takumi. Maybe that's when the killer brought him here? Then, even back then, he was already dead? Hey, wait. Isn't that a little odd? Miyuki, Otobe and I very abruptly decided to tag along to the storehouse, didn't we? What would the culprit have done if one of us decided to stay here instead of going to the storehouse? I can't imagine what the killer was thinking. Mr. Wada muttered that, then hung her head. Looking at that, we all started to calm our emotional outburst. I can imagine what she's feeling. Finding a corpse right in front of us and setting aside our feelings of sympathy in order to start deducing the circumstances of the murder. Is that really human? Mr. Wada approached Kurosawa's corpse and put both hands on his face. I should have brought you out sooner. Sorry, Takumi. Though his face was pale, he looked like he was simply asleep and feeling unwell. I wonder if he was dead from the very beginning when he was off sleeping drunk. But the reality was far more cruel. Takumi, I was afraid of being suspected, so I did something terrible. I'm sorry, Takumi. Right after you said that, tears came spilling out once again. But the next moment, looks like there aren't any visible wounds. So what killed Takumi Kurosawa? Oh. Huh? It's a simple question. Isn't it natural to wonder? Mr. Nozaki, it may not be the best time to say something like that. But it's strange, so I'm telling you it's strange. Mr. Nozaki paid no heed to my attempts to keep her in check, continued making her point. How was Takumi Kurosawa killed? If he was stabbed, there would have been bleeding. And if he was pushed around near the stone steps, there'd be mud on his body, right? Strongly suspect my theory may be correct. He was poisoned. And yet this corpse is perfectly clean. Why is that? Now that you mention it, that certainly seemed to be the case. When I looked at his feet, I couldn't see even a trace of mud on his socks or the hem of his pants. There are no visible marks on this man. The desire to check versus the What I've just done is made a mistake in our spoilers, but also confirmed a theory I had. There are no visible marks on this man. So what is the cause of death? How can that be? Miss Tawada looked back and forth between Otobe and I. All we could do was tilt our heads in bewilderment. Checking dead bodies was absolutely out of the question for me. I had no problem with living humans, but as soon as they die, they become a frightening object. Thinking about it that way, I was somewhat alarmed by Miyuki's lack of aversion to looking over the corpse. Investigating corpses isn't the kind of job for average people. All along, she seemed to finish her investigation. She looked back and spoke in an emotionless, clerical tone. The cause of death is strangulation. The record markings near his cervical vertebrae. Huh? Record markings near his cervical vertebrae? His neck? What are these cord markings? Okay, so my suspicion was that he was poisoned. Apparently not. Cord markings are impressions left behind when a thin rope is tightened around a body. These marks are typically found on the skin of the neck when someone is killed by strangulation. Miyuki could tell from our faces that we didn't understand, though she offered a detailed explanation. Unfortunately, he couldn't have been killed while we were dealing with the man in black, and he didn't die while we were in the ritual storehouse either. Judging by the state of rigor mortis, Kurosawa died around 9 PM last night. 9 PM? I thought desperately about what Miyuki said, so I repeated her words back to her, until I realised. Oh, hold on. Isn't that before we even arrived here? Indeed. That's weird, because we all saw him. Right, Arakawa? Isn't that so? Kurosawa was sleeping here drunk, wasn't he? So... Huh? Otobe was so alarmed by my hysterical exclamation that he turned back and looked me straight in the eyes. What is it? Maybe at that time he was already... A horrifying thought came rushing out. Kurosawa, who was supposedly sleeping in the corner of the room after heavy drinking, was in fact already dead? If that's the case, then there's only one possibility. Tawada, you... I don't know. I don't know anything. Seriously, I didn't know. Enough already. Miyuki grabbed Miss Tawada by the hand and looked her straight in the eyes. And there was no longer any hint of a smile on her face. Her outrage was so horrifyingly powerful that even I was trembling a short distance away. I'll ask you once more. Kurosawa was killed before we even arrived here. Right? Sorry. Miss Tawada's whole body was trembling. But even so, she continued forcefully shaking her head to deny it. I don't know. Really, I don't know. It wasn't me. I didn't do it. Please believe me. Perhaps driven to her limit by that display, Miyuki turned on her heels and walked out of the ring. And before I could even ask where she was going, she came back. In her hands, wrapped in a handkerchief, she had a rope roughly 1 meter long. I found this in the kitchen trash can. It was very well hidden, so it was really just a coincidence that I found it. If we give this to the police, sure they'll find traces of skin from Kurosawa's neck. Tightening the rope by hand was a very poor decision. After all, the ends of the rope are sticky with sweat. As soon as Miss Tawada heard all that, her eyes opened wide and she lost her voice. Miyuki wasn't simply doubting her. She knew all this from the beginning, and there was no point examining the rope. Miss Tawada's reaction made everything abundantly clear. Spooky ass time! Dejectedly, Miss Tawada's eyes were open wide as she stared at the rope, and eventually she let out a dry laugh. Then she leaned her head back against the wall, while muttering to herself, I give up. You would have thought people like detectives would be in a place like this. Even though I went through so much effort to choose a location where nobody would ever go. Miss Tawada, just a little longer, could have regained a peaceful life. What a shame. Miss Tawada looked down at Kurosawa's corpse with cold eyes as she dispassionately spoke. I was crying over him just a moment ago, but a cold-hearted tone made it clear that that was just an act. Just as Miyuki and Sonozaki had realised, that crying was an utter lie. It's just a sorry much, she says. I killed Takumi before all of you arrived here. It's Tawada. So when you told us you and Kurosawa were attacked near the shrine gate, that was a lie too. Of course. Mr. Wada deeply nodded. She's a murderer? Mr. Wada suddenly felt like a creature from another world. Mr. Wada looked back at me and smiled as though she'd perceived my thought. Perhaps it was an act of strength from a person who'd been completely driven to the wall with all avenues of escape cut off. But the horrifying smile on her face showed no signs of life. So this chapter is called Answer to the Murder A, which I thought was about the suicide car, but clearly I was wrong. I still don't understand. Is it because he betrayed you? Or was he unfaithful? Did he lie to you? Did he do something unforgivable? No, Takumi wouldn't do something like that. It's just that I wanted to get rid of him. Oh? Yes, that's all. Because I loved him so much. How does that make any sense? Loved him? Why did you kill him? It's been nearly 7 years since we started dating. First met around the time I started college. Mr. Wada raised her head and gazed off in the distance. That moment, an image emerged on the back of our eyelids. A little old school building, not far from the city centre. A massive green lawn was visible from the 4th floor of the school building. My class was in the very last classroom at the far end of the building. I finally got accepted and hoping to attend, so everything was looking bright. But things were a bit difficult for me because I was a year younger than I started to develop an inferiority complex about it, and after enrolling, I spent most of my time alone. Hey, Tawada, are you interested in attending a live concert next Sunday? Huh? Monday. A male classmate spoke to me for the very first time. His smooth hair was a bit dishevelled. His clothes were a bit sloppy, like he didn't try hard to dress well. Even though I normally would have found that detail unappealing, it actually gave me a good feeling. He was still quite young and had a youthful look on his face. The thing about him I found most attractive was his eyes. Takumi's eyes sparkled. They seemed to radiate all the enjoyment filling his heart. Concert? Yeah, a concert. Do you like music, Mr. Wada? Oh, who's performing? I am. Me. Who else would it be? Huh? I'm putting together a band. Actually, I write my own songs too, and I'm rather proud of my work. Honestly, I was totally shocked. I didn't have any special skills for someone to be able to pick up music while studying at school. I felt like he was from a totally different world. Not just a celebrity, but a divine being. He even did his own composition and spoke to people to convince them to attend his concert. That's not something you can do without a great deal of confidence in your skills. And a person with such unprecedented talent was standing directly in front of me, right now. So I was completely starstruck. It was a wonderful feeling. How about it? You're busy, I understand. Oh. I was so stunned by the sudden situation I couldn't find the words. Perhaps due to that, his voice grew uneasy. Seeing that, I understood. Of course. This guy was putting on a brave face for my sake. All for me, the one who stuck out in our class. Is that really okay? I don't know much about music. Of course, that's fine. It'll be great, I promise. As soon as I responded that it was okay, he put on a huge, bright smile. Honestly, he was like a child. But I found that innocence wonderful, at the bottom of my heart. Where are you performing? Can you tell me the location? Right, here's a ticket and the flyer. Oh, don't worry about money, it's completely free. Alright, it's a promise then. I'll be waiting for you. Takumi wrapped his little finger on the sack with a beaming smile, then ran out the classroom. The warmth of his touch still lingered in my little finger. That was maybe the first time in my entire life locking fingers with a boy. It was beating fast, and it didn't take much time after that before we got together. Since we were in the same class, we were always together. The two of us went to all sorts of places together every week, and I went to see all of his concerts. He, Takumi Kurosawa, was playing the guitar, and was fortunate enough to have a bunch of fans. Fangirls would come to the concerts and stare longingly at him. There were so many girls for Takumi to choose from, and they were always cheering for him. But even so, his eyes were always on me. I was the one he cherished me. Hello, Pantapasso. I believe I'm pronouncing your name right. I apologize. Pantopo. There we go. I guess staring at my events list like, what's going on? Hello, how are you? I hope you are doing well. Thank you for the reminder. My voice is dying. There we go. Also, my room is really warm for some reason. It isn't even that warm today. Just that every day I must suffer. Actually. Sorry, the phone just buzzed. Yep, it's 81 Fahrenheit in my room. Get the window open and the fan going in a second. That made me so happy. It was a blessing. Thank you for the follow. I hope you are doing well. I'm seriously aiming to go for the major leagues after college. Major leagues? Yeah, I want to go pro. Maybe you'll make fun of me for being reckless, but I really want to make a living off my music. Oh no. I just gave a thumbs up as if I had the, as if I had my camera on. Sorry. I did think it a bit reckless. Akumi's music was quite wonderful and he was certainly talented. But going pro was a completely different story. Plenty of talented people put all their passion, expertise and hard work striving for it, but only a handful of people ever made it onto the stage. And even if that major debut did come to fruition and he was able to live off of it, there'd be fierce competition waiting for him every single day. Plus, this isn't the sort of world where you're rewarded simply because you put in a lot of effort. After all, everyone else is working hard too. Naturally. Words difficult. Could he really make his dreams come true in this callous, ruthless world? I don't totally understand it. Isn't it hard to make it as a professional? Will it really be alright? Well, that's true. But I've got tons of lyrics I've been writing since I was a kid. All that's left is to put music to them. I'm rather confident in my work, you know? Plus, you told me it was good, didn't you, Yai? Yeah. Well, I'm sure I'll have to keep working my part-time job for a little while to pay the bills. As long as you're with me, Yai, and I can make a living just playing my music, I'll be happy. I couldn't ask for anything else. So I think I'll just have to work hard. I enjoyed hearing Takumi talk about his dreams. Somehow it felt different from anyone else. He wasn't swayed by the whims of the world. He had his own values and decided for himself how he wanted to live. I'm gonna have to AFK for a second. Noises were me opening my blinds a little bit and opening the window. Having like a rainy windstorm the other day, so I closed it because it kept slamming my door, which was really annoying, and then I forgot to open it again, so... Anyway, back to a tale of woe. Takumi had his own values. He decided for himself how he wanted to live. I was confident he'd be able to manage. He's Takumi. Surely he'll be able to make his dreams come true. At least I thought so. His eyes glittered and sparkled any time he told me about his future ambitions. If we ever move in together, I want to get a dachshund. I'd like to live near a big park and try doing the radio exercises together every morning, even as we grow old. I want to play at the concert at the Budokan and propose to you right after finishing my best song. I have a concert proposal story. When I was, let's see, 14, I reckon, I went to go see Evanescence at Wembley Arena, and they were supported by The Used and Lost Alone, who I then fell in love with for the next several years. I already knew some of the Used songs. Anyway, at the end of the, not at the end of the set, it was at the end of The Taste of Ink. A fan, I guess, came on stage and proposed to her girlfriend on stage at the end of The Taste of Ink. It was very good. And so whenever I hear the song now, that's always what I think of, even though it's been like 10 years? Over 10 years, actually, it must have been. Yeah, that's over 10 years. No, maybe? I don't know, I can't do maths. I want to play concert at the Budokan and propose to you right after finishing my best song. He was seriously considering those things, laughing like a child all the while. But despite that, I was feeling the opposite. I was anxious. If he really does make a big hit and become a celebrity, he'll be surrounded by fans and other stars. If that were to happen, would his feelings for me stay the same? I believe that he loves me very much right now, but as his position changes, his perspective will change, and his values along with it. When that happens, will I be able to follow him? Or will he leave me behind? That dreadful future haunted my thoughts, sometimes even my dream. So there came a day when I asked him about it. Hey, Takumi, some horrible disaster plagued our world and forced you to choose between your music and me. Which would you choose? What is this? What's that supposed to mean? Well, I saw a story like that on TV the other day. That was a lie, of course. It really was a ridiculous, nonsensical question. But Takumi smiled like usual, and without hesitation gave me an answer with a serious look on his face. I don't know what sort of horrible disaster you're talking about, but of my only options, you or my music, I'd definitely choose you, yeah? Really? Of course. I can live without my music, but I don't even want to imagine life without you. Me. I was elated. He wasn't just saying that. I felt like he truly meant it. I was deeply moved. I always felt warm and happy when I was with him. Just being around him made me feel at ease. Yumi, I love you. Yep, I love you even more than you can imagine. No way, I started to speak up, but he kissed me. Every scene we played was packed with that sweet sentiment. Those 4 years were absolutely delightful. I graduated from college and got a job doing clerical work for a small trading company. It was a company I'd never heard of and it didn't have many employees. The company was doing solid business. Takumi, on the other hand, couldn't find a job anywhere. Naturally, he'd always say he was chasing his dream. His life hadn't changed much since his college days. He sincerely wanted to concentrate all his strength on his music career. His life wasn't all that different, just that the time he spent in lectures was replaced with a part-time job. The band members' faces didn't change either. Just like in our college days, I attended his concerts every week, so our relationship never really settled down. Before long, several years had passed. The people around us started getting married and skipping the band to take care of their kids. Takumi's band members started giving up on the band, one after another. All my friends around the same age got their dose of reality and started walking through life with their feet on the ground. Takumi, you alright? You've been feeling down recently, haven't you? I'm alright. I'm just busy at work, so I'm not getting enough sleep. Though he said as much, I could tell he was feeling irritated. He was having trouble replacing missing band members recently, and he was struggling to find the money to open a studio or put on any concerts. Maybe I was the one getting impatient. Our love hadn't changed much since the old days. I was starting to worry if we could keep things the way they were. Whenever I talked to him, my anxiety about the future still nagged at my heart, smouldering like an old flame. Sorry, I didn't mean to make you worry, but I'm sure things will get better soon. I'll make it happen. Actually, the producer at that record company said something about meeting up. Takumi seemed so happy when he was talking about things back then, but I was only half listening to him, because I'd already heard that story many times before. He said it all the time. I didn't mean to make you worry. Something about those words felt out of place, because unlike in the past, something started to feel cold deep inside my heart. Honestly, I might not have been worried that he was feeling down. Maybe somewhere deep down, I was trying to use his lethargy as an excuse to tell him to set aside his dreams and live a steady lifestyle. My college friends were getting ready to buy condos, build houses, and starting to have children. The feeling that it's not so easy to make your dreams come true was finally starting to seep in. Pardon me. Me was probably feeling the same way. So one day when I came back from work, "Hey, Takumi, let's move in together." Huh? I was the one to suggest it. But the suggestion wasn't born from kindness or love. By just being a little closer to him, I could set aside my helpless impatience, my frustrations, my anxiety about the future. I could feel all the holes in my heart. If we live together, our expenses will be cut in half. And if we cook for ourselves properly, we can save a lot of money there too. If you put some of that money towards your music career, maybe it will make your troubles a little lighter. You really okay with that? Yeah, it's fine. I want to do it. Yeah. Takumi didn't answer right away. That seemed natural. Regardless how I felt about it, I'd be formally agreeing to cover part of his expenses. No, all of them. But I'd already decided, and I was fine with it. Getting emails and being like, no, don't look at the email now. Today, Takumi, you were able to do things I could never do. You have incredible talent, beyond my imagination, so I want to support you. There's a world out there I can never see on my own, but if I could see even a little of it standing by your side, would that be so bad? No, but I'm sure it'll happen. It's alright, I believe in you. So let me make you believe too, Takumi, in the lovely world from your dreams you're having now. Yay. Then he hugged me so tight that it hurt, and cried, just a little, despite the pain in my arms, despite the burning of those teardrops. I felt happy, truly did feel happy, and the guilt of the cold, sinful emotions I'd begun to embrace felt just a little bit lighter. And then we started living together. There were all sorts of problems that came from the two of us living together. It was more difficult than I thought, but that was all blown away by the tremendous joy I got out of it. Really, amazingly so. Looking back, I was like a child. Still, Takumi was always so kind. On paydays, he'd always bring home my favourite cake. He was happy to help out with the cooking and the laundry. When I came home tired after a tedious day at work, he'd listen to my stories and comfort me, encourage me. Just remembering those days brings a tear to my eye. We were so full of love. Those days were irreplaceable. Really, there was no mistaking that. It was a fact. I don't want to be a bother for you, Yai. If you're unhappy, you're allowed to tell me about it, you know? Yeah. Yai, you'll still be standing by my side when I make my major debut, right? Of course. After all, I'm your #1 fan, Takumi. Every time I said that, a dull pain coursed through my chest. I responded that way automatically. Another part of myself was gradually beginning to feel otherwise. That other me watched Takumi with cold eyes as he continued dreaming of making his major debut. I hated that part of myself, so I carefully chose my words to hide it. I'll support you. I'll stand by your side as you chase your dreams, Takumi. Because I love you, Takumi. Your faith in me gives me the strength to keep chasing those dreams. Your presence is what keeps me going. Yai, thanks for everything. I love you. I'm not doing very good reading this because I don't know how to portray emotion. This one small regret still inside me now. It's that I wish I believed in him more. In him, a love, and in myself. Love and dreams were all we had, but I didn't need anything more to be happy. If I could have gone on living, bathed in that warm fantasy, treasuring that precious, gentle time, low-flying airplane time, maybe this outcome wouldn't have transpired. One of the light bulbs burned out in this dimly lit assembly hall. Miss Tawada briefly paused her story to gaze down at Kurosawa's face. When I glanced at my watch, the time was now 3 a.m. I seemed so happy, so why did it come to this? Those sweet days didn't go on for very long. Unfortunately, Takumi changed. Miss Tawada shook her head, self-derisively. One day, I came home from work to find him skipping work and drinking alcohol. What's going on? Didn't you have work today? I took a day off. Uh-huh. He spoke like he was flinging the words at me. Of course, there was no reason for him to suddenly take a day off. It's good to get a little time off, but he didn't have the vacation time to spare. Or if something's wrong. I was rather tired of that work after work that evening, but I wanted Takumi to feel better, so I ran to the supermarket and prepared a feast. but Takumi didn't say another word. I wondered what happened. In the end, he never told me. Even though just a few weeks earlier, he would have grumbled out a few complaints about what was bothering him and cheered up after at least a little once he got it off his chest. I don't want to be a bother for you, Yae. If you're unhappy, you're allowed to talk about it, you know? The words he said earlier came back to me. That was the first time he ever broke a promise to me. He didn't go to his part-time job the next day or the day after. With Takumi not working, he couldn't pay the monthly rent, so I paid it in his place. After that day, I made every rent payment myself. Takumi never said anything about it. He didn't say anything. I just thought, so, I'm sure I've mentioned this in streams before, but a couple of important background facts. One, I tend to stream with the light off, primarily because I just don't like having overhead lights on, but also partially because I have this probably wrong belief that my room is cooler if I don't have the overhead on. So my room is full dark now, it's only illuminated by my PC. Second background fact, I live on the 8th floor of an apartment block, and it's one of a set of 5 buildings that are sort of all in a row. So with my window open, I can sort of see into the kitchen of the next building over and 1 floor down because they have their blinds open all the way. So I was looking at the screen and then looking over to my second monitor quickly, and then I saw something move out the corner of my eye and nearly shat myself, and then realised it was just somebody leaving the kitchen in their flat. But for a hot second I was like, oh, what's going on? He didn't say anything. Before long, I started paying the water and electric, and even covered the cost of our meals. Takumi would wake up around noon to work on his composition and write lyrics. That was enough to keep me convinced. I was able to encourage myself to keep working hard. But one day, the song he wrote was so disconnected I couldn't even bring myself to listen to it. Fortunately, I let a few words slip out. What is this? It's weird. I never imagined how much that one statement could trample his motivation and self-esteem. As a result, he never wrote any more songs after that. He simply spent all day drinking alcohol. I, on the other hand, spent every day struggling to keep up with my office work. It wasn't fun at all. I smiled even when I didn't want to around superiors and co-workers, and the stress of communicating with junior colleagues piled up. But I continued living that lifestyle. Takumi was living an easygoing lifestyle more akin to retirement. Over time, I gradually started feeling stressed around him, too. Takumi, still not working? I'll work. I'm just a little tired right now. I see. Sorry for all the trouble. Soon, I'll definitely make a song so good it'll shock you, right? That's good. Looking forward to it. I was annoyed with myself for saying that's good. I really should have said that's not good at all. And though I thought about sharing my honest feelings with him, I couldn't bring myself to say it. Takumi is doing his best to make his dreams come true, so I have to support him. I have to work harder. I need to be more patient. As long as I can endure this, if I love Takumi, I have to endure this. But it was gradually getting harder to maintain this lifestyle. That much was a fact. More and more friends were getting married and having children. Even when I spoke with them, it was difficult to maintain a conversation. I couldn't help but envy our friends for having families and happy lives. So I gradually fell out of touch with those friends and started feeling really lonely. Things stayed the way they were. With Takumi, having a child would be difficult. It took a tremendous amount of work and my entire salary to take care of Takumi, so raising a child on top of that was impossible. It was heartbreaking. But it must be even more painful for Takumi. None of his hard work is ever recognised, even after doing so much to make his dreams come true. All that struggling, only to fail. I'm going to put another content warning in the title. Title and game have been updated. Because I know what's going to come soon. He must be tormented by that frustration every single day. So these hardships I'm enduring are no big deal. No big deal. really that? Is Takumi really in that much pain? After all, he spends all day sleeping and lazing about, doesn't he? He's not even writing songs anymore. His skills have gotten dull, his instruments have fallen out of tune, and now they're collecting dust in the corner of the room, aren't they? How was that difficult? How was that painful? And all the while I've been gritting my teeth and doing my best to endure it. Oh, it cuts hard. Oh. I knew it was gonna happen as soon as they were like, she was like, all he does is stay home and drink alcohol, but instantly thrown back to my old flatmates who... One of them didn't work whatsoever. She didn't do anything except play video games all day. And the other one worked part-time at remotely earning a shit ton of money, apparently. Meanwhile, I worked full-time for fuck all, and I still had to do everything. I was their personal housekeeper, I guess. Hell, I even took out the cat litter for their cats, which weren't mine. I had nothing to do with those cats, they didn't even like me. But I took out the cat litter because otherwise it would just sit in a bag in the hallway and stink up the entire flat. And the reason for doing that was that they were just so depressed and their mental health was just so bad, and it's like, bitch, me too. You know, which one of us has the father with the terminal illness? Didn't either of you, as far as I can tell. One of you gets along really well with their parents and the other one doesn't, but their parents still support them and pay for everything. They bought the flat that they were living in, yet I still had to pay them rent. And they were like, oh, we can't live without your rent, it's the only money we have. And I'm like, well, tough titties, I can't live with you anymore. Every so often I'm like, I'm over them, I haven't thought about them in ages, I don't care about them, I don't care what they're doing with their lives right now, all of which is true, except for the I'm over them, and then something happens, or like, usually it's that I read something in media or I read something from a friend that reminds me of them, and I just get filled with this intense, bitter anger at them and at the fact that for the third time, well, the second time in quick succession, but the third time indirectly a row, I've fallen into a really shitty, unhealthy friendship and didn't realise until it was practically too late. And the reason I knew the moment I knew I had to move out is when I've been thinking about it, and I had to call my mum on the bus because I didn't want to call her while I was at work because I didn't want I wasn't that close to my co-workers at the time, so I didn't want them to know what was going on with me. And I couldn't call her at the flat, obviously, because they would listen to hear my conversation probably. But I couldn't like get the bus back into town and then like hang out outside the flat and call mum, because they would know that I would come home late and ask what I'd been doing. And then at that point when mum was like, why can't you call me later, I can't hear you on the bus, and I like explained the logic to her, and then I was like, I need to get out of here. Anyway, that's some of my tragic backstory. Just to endure it. Working until my body felt heavy, every single day at a job that wasn't where I'd hoped it would be, all for Takumi's sake. Does he not understand how much I'm suffering? Does he truly comprehend how desperately I've worked to endure it? It's not normal. It's unfair. Why do I alone need to be patient when Takumi is off doing whatever he likes? How much longer do I have to put up with this? Until tomorrow? The next day? Another year? Forever? In the meantime, my birthday had arrived. My legs felt heavy. Until now, Takumi and I would always go out to eat together, but I couldn't expect that to continue with Takumi not bringing in any income. But I didn't have the heart to invite him out to eat, even to celebrate my own birthday. Still, there was also something unpleasant about needing to head home and prepare dinner on such a special day. In the end, I had to work overtime that day, went straight home. I'd forgotten it was my birthday, and I'm sure he forgot too. No, it's just pretending to forget. I'm home. When I came home, he was in his room like usual, but something about him looked different. Though I expected him to be out, he was sitting nicely in the middle of the room, looking straight at me. You're late. Yeah. He looked up with a stagnant look, and he looked a bit drunk, like he'd been drinking here alone. Sorry, I was working overtime. I'll have dinner ready soon. It's already a bit late today, so I'll have to manage with whatever's available. Guy, what is it? Don't lie to me. Uh-huh. The next moment, he rose to his feet and grabbed me by the shoulders. Well, what's wrong, Takumi? How can you even ask that? Why are you lying to me? I'm not lying to you. What are you talking about? After all, today's your birthday, isn't it? Oh, I remembered. That realization made me a bit happy. When I saw the anger in his eyes, the cheerful feeling shattered in the blink of an eye. You're lying about working over, aren't you? You've been out somewhere up until now, haven't you? I didn't go anywhere. Where on earth would I even go? You met up with someone, didn't you? I don't have any money, so you went out celebrating with another man? Huh? I wouldn't do that. Takumi, what are you saying? Pressured by his baseless suspicion, I unconsciously donned a rough tone. Me? Eating out with a man besides Takumi? Ridiculous. There must be some misunderstanding. Would I have come home in such a melancholy mood if that were the case? Just hearing Takumi say that made me feel miserable. Even though I've been working so hard, I've been patiently enduring this, all for his sake. How could he say that to me? You? Huh? What about you, Takumi? No more. No more. Can't take any more. What is that supposed to mean? Hey, Takumi? Do you know what my friends say about you? Huh? Takumi? They call you a leech. The expression in his eyes changed. I finally calmed down after saying that. I immediately came to regret it. Lord, I actually say that? Is that how you see me? Me, my friends. Tormented by guilt, I turned away to avoid looking him in the eyes. Right then, I felt a violent impact on my cheek. It was only after I stumbled back into the wall that I realised. He'd slapped me. For the first time. You hit me for the first time? Takumi? Oh, excuse me. Deep down, you've been looking down on me this whole time, haven't you? I already knew those rumours. Old hags in the neighbourhood have been saying as much. I don't need someone like you telling me as much. Your face said it well enough. Then, he grabbed me by the hair and tossed me to the floor. Stop it! What are you doing? Just as I started suffocating, I came to realise this was reality. My field of view darkened over, thanks to the spine-chilling fear and despair. Even as you said you'd watch over my dreams, you've been looking down on me this whole time, haven't you? After all, I'm the scum of society. I'm not like you. You enjoy the sense of superiority you feel around me, don't you? Takumi, I'd never seen him like that before. I couldn't believe it. He was always so kind, so hearing him use such foul language and to get violent with me was incredibly shocking. I am sorry for the flash. Time passed after that. Before I knew it, I'd fallen unconscious. But when I opened my eyes, it was there. Sorry. I'm sorry. As I lay there motionless, Kumi looked towards me with the usual shine in his eyes. Kumi? Seemed even more shocked than me that he resorted to violence. Sorry. Yeah, I am sorry. I did something inexcusable. He held me tight, looked straight into my eyes. Sorry. You're an idiot. Sorry, I'm sorry. Kimi. He pressed an ice against my swollen red cheek, tears in his eyes. Sorry, I'm sorry. I said something terrible. I'm sorry. He was crying as he hugged me, and I cried too, clinging to him. As I was held in his arms, I had a thought. Is this really the person I fell in love with? Takumi. I was scared to admit that he'd changed. I just wanted to forget everything and kept crying. That day was the beginning of hell. From then on, he resorted to violence every opportunity. Anytime he was in a bad mood, when I held my chopsticks improperly, when when I said I'm home too quietly, when I folded the laundry slightly differently, all of those would result in a beating. I was even hospitalized for it. That was the day when I was suddenly asked to work overtime. It was a rare occasion when he was making dinner, but in the end I couldn't get home until 11. He slapped me as soon as I came home, and after that, it was hard to imagine someone as calm and earnest as Miss Tawada living a life like that. She smiled a bit as she told her story, but it looked painful. Once or twice more, I began to wonder if he'd ever stop. I didn't know what I could do on my own. I couldn't afford to think about what would be worse. Plus, that was a bit of a tumultuous time. Rumours were going around that Yae Tawada was going through a rough patch in her personal life, and rumours spread in the neighbourhood that she was supporting a man leading a hopeless lifestyle, which made it harder to do things around the neighbourhood. My mind and body were at their limits. What even brought me joy? It's hard to tell anymore. In that position, I would have run away. I would have broken up with a person like that. She forced a weak smile. Despite that, I think I still loved him. It felt like that was what a child's smile was trying to convey. Takumi would always hit me until he was satisfied, then apologise while crying his eyes out. I always forgave him, because deep in my heart, the memories of the old Takumi were still there. That's abuse. Takumi's eyes didn't sparkle like before, but his gentle smile was just the same. He no longer focused on his dreams and only ever drank, but those gentle times were still there. He'd greet me in a warm voice. Welcome back. He'd say, you must be tired, and rub my shoulder. No matter how bad the dishes I cooked turned out, no matter how poorly I seasoned them, he'd eat the whole thing like it was delicious. That was the Takumi I loved. It's painful even for me. I thought about leaving him many times. I couldn't walk out. He was unable to pay the rent on his own. But I should have been able to have my own life. My response to that is, yes you can. He needs to get his shit together and it's not your responsibility. It's his responsibility and you don't owe him anything. If he was committed to actually fixing himself, I'd be willing to provide the support, but at that point, let him suffer, you know? That's my thinking. What's this? The consequences of my actions? Otobe said, looking at the camera. Although he suffered as well, but... God, it makes me so angry just because of people I've known and the shit I've gone through in my life. My instant knee-jerk reaction is, so let him be homeless, so let him suffer for it, like... Maybe once he realises that you're no longer paying for his entire life, he'll actually, like, grow up a bit and maybe think about himself and not rely on someone else to do everything for him. The Takumi in front of me right now was different from the Takumi I loved. I told myself that many times, but I couldn't do it. No matter what, I still saw the old Takumi. Whenever the two of us were together, I could only remember the good old time. You couldn't abandon him. You no longer knew what to do, you killed him. That's not it. Not it. Miss Tawada racked her brain to squeeze the words out, tightly clutching her chest. A line of tears fell from her eyes. I'm sure it's even more painful for him than it was for me. Absolutely not. Then she spit that out, the words practically bursting from her chest. Giving up on your dreams, falling out with your friends. I was the only person he had left. But even I was trying to cast him aside. I should have left him immediately. I wish I'd packed all my things and left that place. But I couldn't do it. Even though I was clinging to my old memories and he kept beating me and beating me, I stayed by his side. At the same time, spending all this time around him made me hate how much he changed. He must have felt the conflict in my heart. Mr. Wada said, that's why, and took a deep breath before continuing. To end everything. Those lovely memories, the painful ones from recent times, and trying to drown them out, and even Takumi himself, all had to disappear. So I got rid of him. After his death, only those happy memories would be left behind, and I'd be able to rest easy. That's what I believed. Like how a selfish excuse like that will fly. I'm not reading this out loud, because I'm on her side. circumstances. Well, I'm not reading out Arakawa's opinion because it's so viscerally the opposite of how I feel. Don't know if I'd resort to murder, but things I probably shouldn't say out loud on stream, huh? No. I'm on her side with this. He deserves to suffer. She spoke quietly with a cold expression, like the spirit possessing her had finally let go. Yes, that's true. But I decided this on my own. This was my choice. I decided this so that both of us could be happy. So I set out to accomplish the goal I planned out, to get rid of all the unpleasant things, and I put my plan into motion. Right around that time, the Weekly 7 released the Occult Special Edition. She just happened to read it, and that was the turning point where she formulated her plan. It's a really nice place. It's surrounded by nature and it won't be filled with tourists. If we go to a place like that, maybe your mood will turn around. Let's go together. What do you say? Takumi gladly took me up on that offer. After that, I let him drink alcohol laced with sleeping pills and strangled him to death while he was helplessly intoxicated and it was all over. But I did make one miscalculation. Since this was an abandoned village, I assumed nobody would notice the lights here. As Miss Tawada told us a story, it seemed like deep down she made peace with her past. When she finished her tale of the past, she looked relieved. I know that murder is wrong. I didn't want to do it, and I don't think I'll ever do it again. But this was the best option. There was no other way. Because it feels so refreshing now, you know? That alone is proof I didn't make the wrong choice. You push yourself too hard and keep your feelings to yourself. In the end, the unhappiness will only pile up. Plus, Takumi was released from the suffering and I was able to start my life over. From now on, I'll be able to live my life facing a brand new tomorrow. It's a happy ending for both of us, don't you think? This feels good. Her ring skin cute. Circumstances is unacceptable. So how much of the story is true? Unspeakable disgust was swirling around inside my heart. Because Arakawa clearly hasn't had any actual suffering in his life. She kept talking about what she did without a hint of remorse or discomfort. Best not to trust anything a murderer says. He said he was violent, but how much of that was the truth? But a far more open motive, right? Dead man can't tell his side of the story after all. I'm not lying to myself. Mr. Wada looked back at me with an expression that said she was completely done. Made me feel sick. Looking so proud even after committing murder. Arakawa was in the wrong here. He's just a man who's not gone through abuse. He doesn't know anything about what it's like to have your emotions completely at the hands of other people and then to have them treat you like shit because they think their own emotions and their own suffering is more important than yours ever has been or ever will be. And I can't read this out loud, it makes me so angry, it makes me feel sick. You don't know the truth. Takumi is already dead, so there's no way to learn anything more, right? Besides, these days he hardly even spoke to me. Even if you asked, I'm sure he wouldn't have said anything. That's right, I can't. Not anymore. But if you were in the same position, would you have done something differently? I did the best I could. I don't regret my choices. Wada. The next moment, before I could say anything more, Miyuki opened her mouth. I want to confirm this once more. That's how you truly feel, is it? Yes. Mr. Wada spoke resolutely. Her eyes were as clear as a blue summer sky. Miyuki, on the other hand, a chilling glimmer in her eyes, an intense snowstorm. Then that means you denied the memories and existence of the happy times you spent with the man you loved. It's not all. You even denied the circumstance that caused you to meet him. If everything was a mistake, right from the start. Miyuki's scathing words caused Tawada's smile to stiffen in an instant. Well, I guess Miyuki's also never been through abuse either. Hmm? Pretty certain she's the daughter of Akasaka, who's a powerful and well-respected policeman. She's apparently a detective of some sort, so... Does she know her? In that moment, Miyuki looked angry. Her face was bursting with fury from the bottom of her heart. Well, no, I have no... I cannot read this out loud. Because it makes me so angry I feel sick. What are you saying? I didn't force anything upon him. If anything, he's the one who forced me to endure. Shut up. Little bitch has never suffered at all in her life. And refuse to read this out loud. Shut up! Mr. Wada roared, like coughing up blood. I refuse to read that out loud because I am on Tawada's side in this. I keep saying it, but these people have no right to speak. I'm assuming they haven't gone through abuse, because I feel like if they had, they'd maybe be a bit more sympathetic, having the slightest amount of empathy for another person, not being so convinced that their morals are the only way to go. I don't think murder's a good thing, but I don't think either of them have any right to judge her. Otobe and I immediately froze in place. Miyuki was standing directly in front of Tawada, bearing the brunt of her outburst and hateful glare. Wrong? You saying it's wrong to think that way? Yeah, that's right. Even from the start, he and I had different values. I just wanted everyday happiness, but Takumi wanted to gamble everything, hunting for glory. I could only take the easy path, while Takumi could risk everything for a momentary chance. We're a terrible match. You're an absurd contradiction, even from the start. Tawada's composed smile vanished as she continued shouting. This was the true voice inside her heart. But I loved him. I truly adored him from the bottom of my heart. But I wanted to live a normal, everyday life. Having children, raising a family. We didn't even need a lawn, just a place where the whole family could read together. Nothing luxurious, but maybe going out shopping or something on Sundays. Being proud of our friends' children, but always thinking our kids are the best. Growing old together, basking in the sunlight side by side while watching our children grow up. Looking back on the good old days nostalgically, but telling each other that our happiest time is always right now. It sounded ordinary. Nothing glamorous about it. Just a simple life. But in reality, that alone was more than enough. If you ever are around or hear of a person who is in an abusive relationship and you go, well, why don't you just break it off? Take a good hard look at yourself. Maybe try and grow some empathy for other people. Maybe do some research, that'd be really helpful. Look at not just Stockholm Syndrome, which is simplification, but actually perhaps look up interviews from abused people about why they haven't broken off relationships. I can tell you why in my case. The first time around it's because I had no idea that relationships were supposed to be anything other than that. The second time it was because and the third time, I was so desperate for friendship I didn't matter. As with the fourth time actually. Although neither of us were particularly healthy in that fourth one, but when you don't know that, actual friendships aren't supposed to be like that, how do you know that anything's different? It's the only experience you have. Always spending your days together with the one you love, never asking for anything more. But still, to do all that, Takumi would have had to abandon his way of life, wouldn't he? He'd have to abandon his dreams, right? Could you suggest something so cruel? I couldn't say it. There was no way I could say it. I was terrified. Scared of telling that to someone like him who lived for his dreams, and making him realize we walked different paths. Having him leave me. Then she collapsed on the spot, crying her eyes out with her face down on the floor. Through caring for him and understanding him, she realized they had different values. Then she was finally able to see it. The collapse of their future. But even so, she loved him too much to accept that, let him go, which is why she chose the path to hell. In face of her sorrow and despair, There was nothing left for any of us to say. Good, you have no right to say anything, including you, Miyuki. In fact, you know, of all of them, I think Otobe probably is the only person who has any right to say anything. Having, you know, been the other person who was driven to such extremes, and even if, you know, he was selfish in the end, you know, he's the only person who's come close to her. Hey, Tawada. Things really are as you say. Why not ask the deceased directly? Uh-huh. Have you forgotten? This is the village where the dead dwell. Simple matter to speak to the dead here. Uh-huh. Son Starkey stepped in front of us. We were all in shock. Knelt down next to Kurosawa and put a hand on his forehead. Was it truly just as you thought? Let's hear it directly from the man in question. We all watched Miss Sonozaki, half doubting. No, completely doubting what she said. Something like that really possible? Couldn't be a joke. She wouldn't say something like that at a time like this. In which case, perhaps. Next moment, we were too shocked for words. Yeah, I had no idea what was happening. It was beyond understanding. Even though he was dead, I'm certain I could hear his voice. What is this? You me? This was the first time I'd heard his voice. It was familiar to Tawada. She could tell after hearing only a single word. Sorry. He was suffering. It's to me. Sorry. What do you mean? Looking closer, Kurosawa's lips weren't moving. I didn't know where the voice was coming from, but it sounded like it was coming from inside my head. Probably won't believe me at this point. I hated myself. Every time I could out my anger on, felt like an ugly coward. The worst kind of person. Good, you should because you are. Ask myself how I allowed it to happen. I'd feel miserable and regret it afterwards. What is this? Well, clearly didn't regret it that much, considering he didn't bother to do anything about it. Tawada looked at him, dumbfounded. Couldn't believe it. Couldn't shut my ears. Not at a time like this. Resorted to violence any time I lost my cool. I hated myself for it. I wanted to change myself. I vowed that I'd do my utmost to stay by your side so many times. But despite constantly telling myself that, I couldn't help but break that vow any time something unpleasant came to pass. How utterly pathetic. It is pathetic. You wanna know how I know this? Being one half of an incredibly unhealthy relationship, hurting and being hurt by my partner, that's how I know it's pathetic. Being too much of a coward to actually say anything when you grow up and realise what a bitch you are, pathetic it is. Mochi's real therapy hours this episode is. It wasn't Yae I wanted to beat to death, it's myself. What are you saying? Mr. Wada passionately gazed at Kurosawa's corpse. It didn't stir. I could clearly hear his voice. I was afraid you'd give up on me. I realised that you were just seeking everyday happiness. But I wasn't sure if I could turn over a new leaf in the style for so long, so I got scared, hesitated, and didn't make up. I was a coward and didn't try and change me. Terrified that you would abandon me at any moment and it would be a surprise. You deserved it. Inviting me to drive that boat was lucky enough to die. You still loved me. So happy to learn you hadn't given up on me, which you should have done. Is this some kind of joke? Stop it. Stop. She incoherently muttered to herself while staring at his corpse. Like she couldn't even see the rest of us. Why you on this trip? I was ready to give up on my dreams. Didn't I tell you back then? When you asked me if I could ever choose between my dreams or you, I chose you. I promised that. And I wanted to deliver on that promise. So I let myself turn into an alcoholic, abused my girlfriend, was too cowardly to do anything or say anything or try and fix myself. I don't know what sort of horrible disaster you're talking about. Options to do on my music, I'd definitely choose you, yeah? Really? Of course. I could live without my music. I can't imagine life without you. No sympathy here. I remembered clearly. But even though I heard him say it, I only half trusted his words. Something like seemed absolutely impossible. He loved his music more than anything else. He cherished it since before I even met him, so there was no way he'd ever choose to put it away. So I gave up. I couldn't believe that he loved me enough to give that up. I couldn't believe that he truly meant those words from so long ago that I'd wanted to hear the most. With good reason, because he gave her no reason to believe it. I was thinking of getting a proper job at a company for a part-time work. Ready to quit my music and give up on my dream of going pro, so I went out job hunting. But it wasn't working out. I never got a real job after leaving college, so it's no surprise, really. Every day, interviewers would turn their noses up at me, saying terrible things as they shot me down. It's painful, and I took it out on you. Sorry. It's the coward's way out. I played so much by others, it must have torn me to pieces. Grow up. I know him that well, but he's trying to choose me, despite the shame it put him through. He chose this gloomy, worthless. No, I'm not reading that out loud because it's like, I don't believe this. I really decided not to believe in you anymore. I want to believe, but I don't. Not after all the pain he put me through. Not after I struggled, worried and worried more, until I finally resolved myself to put an end to it all. So there's no way I'll believe this was the result. As I kept shouting inside my head, I forcibly dug through my memories of betrayal, doing what I could to support a heart on the verge of collapse. But even so, all that was brushed aside as a vision of a smile floated inside my head. And then, I loved you. I'm sorry for the pain I've caused you. I'd like to say I don't want you to regret the time we spent together. But I don't have that right, damn right he doesn't. Sorry. Let me say this. Glad I met you. Because when I was with you, I was able to do my best. I was able to be carried by you doing everything for me because you were just trying to be helpful. I was able to keep chasing my dreams until I gave up on it and became an alcoholic instead. Sorry for turning someone as gentle as you into a murderer. That's why I want you to live a happy life from now on. Get together with a proper guy. Someone not like me. And earn the happiness you really wanted. What are you saying? What do you mean? What is this? Dead people can't talk in the first place. That's enough. Miss Tawada was upset. Her eyes wandered and her breathing was erratic. But just then, Miss Sonozaki reached for his corpse. He pulled a single envelope out of his back pocket, handed it to Tawada. Tawada was a letter of acceptance from the business. Kumi really were planning to get a job, and I guess he was just like, oh no, I won't tell her about it. I'll just drink. Fine. Drinking's fine, you know, why actually talk to the person I'm sharing my life with about anything that's going on? You may think I'm being bitchy, but I have no sympathy for this man whatsoever. I'm sorry. I wanted to show this to you before all this. I wanted you to be happy. I always loved you. Your kindness made me so happy. Your smile was so cute. It was so nice and easy when you paid for everything and I didn't have to do anything except beat you up when I got upset and couldn't handle my emotions. I wanted to see you smile even more. If you could have had a kid, you would have smiled even happier. I wanted to see that. There were so many promises I couldn't fulfill. And I'm so sorry. Thank you for staying with me this time, as I emotionally manipulated you into not feeling able to leave me. Meeting you really did. It was so much joy. You can die. Miss Tawada fell on her face, clinging to Kurosawa, crying. The sorrowful cry of her voice sounded like a heart had been torn apart. Why did you have to die? Please wake up. Wake up. So I can apologize. I need to apologize. What's wrong? Please let me tell you I'm sorry. You killed him. Isn't that the truth? Sorry. I did this. Didn't I ever talk to you about it? Better question, why didn't he ever talk to her about it, given that it's his fault? All the onus is on him. It's emotional manipulation. Overflowing with tears of regret. It was too late. It was too late for everything. I'd acted sooner. I'd had the courage to tell him how I really felt. Bullshit! He'd had the courage to, face his emotions. Or how about tell her how he felt? Rather than just hiding it all up, why not actually say, I'm going looking for jobs and I'm struggling, but I'm looking for jobs and I'm doing my best. Even that slightest bit of maturity and self-awareness could have fixed all of this, in my opinion. I mean, maybe not, because, you know. But again, you may think I'm a bitch, but I don't care, quite frankly. His silence, his inability to speak, everything. About everything. Then, for a while longer, all the rest of us could do was watch silently as she nursed her regrets. 4 a.m. Mr. Wilder was still sobbing while holding his hand. She was still suffering from the knowledge of her sin, from the resentment, hate, and love she felt for Kurosawa all this time. Slightest bit of emotional maturity. And once again, you know how I'm saying this? As one half of the person in a terribly unhealthy relationship, where we are mutually awful towards each other. I can't forgive him, and I can't forgive either of Arakawa or what's-her-face. The way they spoke to her. Empathy missing this fucking. By the way, we still haven't heard your story, have we? Miss Sonozaki turned towards Miyuki's knapsack. There was certainly more than just camping equipment in, like the handgun she used to fight the men in black. That's true. At this point, I suppose there's no point hiding it. Miyuki responded to Miss Sonozaki's sharp gaze, shrugging her shoulders, and pulled something resembling a small black notebook from her breast, flipped the cover over, and turned it towards us. Oh, there was a gold badge inside. A police badge. I thought so. You seem too refined to be a Yakuza. Thank you for your flattery. Ryunosuke, I'm really sorry for hiding this from you all this time. Not a writer. But a feeling. I'm a member of the Metropolitan Police Department's anti-Yakuza. I mean, Organized Crime Division. I've been investigating the assassination of the Sonozaki group's leader that occurred in Oknomiya a few weeks ago. I didn't want word to get out that a police officer was coming here, so I forged an identity with the help of an acquaintance who just happened to be a publisher. Sorry for lying to you. Miyuki went on to explain that she hadn't actually received approval from her superiors to conduct an investigation in Hinamizawa. As a result, all her activities up until this point were technically done into a time off, which is another reason she had to conceal her identity when coming to Hinamizawa. But now that the situation necessitated the use of force, it's no longer possible to keep quiet about it. So you're telling me your job is fighting organized crime? That's right. I was taken aback after hearing such a peculiar expression. That's the case that explains all her strange behaviour up until now. Her adept gun-handling skills, her eagle-eyed glares, speedy analysis of the corpse. They were all the skills of her profession. So I was actually the object of your pursuit this whole time. Yes, though I never dreamed I'd meet you in a place like this, Miss Sonozaki. Besides, even after coming here, I still don't understand the true identity of Mion Sonozaki. Miss Sonozaki made no effort to respond to that inquiry and stifled a laugh. Honestly, I felt relieved to learn her true identity. First and foremost, it meant she wasn't a ghost of Hinamizawa, or with the Yakuza, or a shady murderer. Miyuki, why would you come to an abandoned village? I had my sights on a sniper who attempted to assassinate the group leader, Akane Sonozaki, near a hospital in Tokyo, but it didn't appear that arresting them alone would be enough to settle the incident. Just as I was about to investigate the background of the incident, I received intel indicating that other group members were heading to Hinamizawa, so I thought there might be something going on at the Sonozaki estate. I came here to investigate. I see. So you've dug up that much, have you? The Sonozaki let out a brief sigh, but it seems Miyuki hadn't been totally lying when she came to me saying she wanted to investigate Hinamizawa. Back tomorrow, or I guess technically today, she was originally planning to conduct a full-fledged investigation with another team member who was coming here on an annual holiday. But she gained intel on the Sonozaki group the day before her scheduled departure, so she adjusted her schedule and came here with me, thinking she might be lucky enough to find some evidence. But if that's the case, why lie and say she's a reporter? When I asked her that, she shrugged her shoulders. Then she stuck out her tongue and said, You would have been upset if he told you I was with the police, right, Yunosuke? Oh, it's true. If I knew the person I was travelling with was a detective rather than a reporter, probably would have declined the offer no matter how beautiful she was. What's more, it meant there were Yakuza members waiting for me instead of ghosts. If she told me that, this whole thing would have ended right at the start. It doesn't matter how cute your face is, Miyuki. Sounds bad, but she was only planning to do information gathering. There was no way she could have expected two sides to clash on the battlefield. But whether it was bold or reckless, considering her position, there was nothing I could say. Please, wait. You're telling me Mion's a Yakuza boss? Not quite, but something like that. Or why is someone like a Yakuza boss in this abandoned village? Tsurumachi probably already knows this, but a long time ago, our group held considerable power in this area. It would take forever to explain it properly, so let me summarize. And so, Miss Samazaki began her story. Let's see. What do I want to do? What I want to do is what I want to do is leave us on a cliffhanger here, because I have a feeling that Mion's story is going to be very long, and yes, I have a feeling that Mion's story is going to be very long, so I think it's probably a good idea to finish off here. So, I am going to be streaming near Replicant this Saturday, where we'll be helping find this guy's wife and possibly finishing off part 1 or coming close to it. I genuinely don't know. Then on Sunday it'll be Destiny 2, where we'll be continuing hanging out in Season of the Splicer and doing some challenges, some override. I'll maybe try and get like my Crucible and my Gambit levels up early this time around. We'll see. Hopefully they backdate those like they did some of the other stuff. On Tuesday it'll be Final Fantasy XIV, where I'm going to be taking a break from the MSQ on Ashard, because we are going to be doing 5.5 on Maeve. I'm not sure how long that's going to take, so I may or may not be streaming on Wednesday doing the non-MSQ stuff. I think it's only Boja, so I'll probably, depending on how long MSQ takes, I'll probably do Boja on Tuesday, but I may do it on Wednesday instead. And then next Thursday, we'll be continuing Higurashi When They Cry, Yoigoshi, where we'll find out Mion's secrets. So I'm going to say thank you very much for coming along. It is very much appreciated, and I do hope that you enjoyed. Thank you again for the follow, Juan. It is very appreciated. I hope you are doing well. Do have a good evening and be excellent to each other. Thank you very much for coming along, and I shall see you guys on Saturday.